Greetings and welcome back to Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, the premiere in Legend of the Galactic Heroes hot takes and accurate speculation. Democracy might be dead in the cold void of space, but somehow, we're all breathing slightly easier this week. As always, acting as both your host and eater of crow is myself, G. And with me, as always, continuing to bat at an 85 average on show speculation, is my co-host, Iro.
It's me. No, you keep me around for some reason, I guess.
Yeah. See, this is why I pay you the big bucks. I paid the big bucks to get you on this podcast.
Zero.
Like, when I was talking with the producers, and the execs before we started this podcast, they were like, well, you're going to need a co-host, of course, right? Because the rest of us don't want to watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes. And I was like, it can be none other than Iro. He's
so non-confrontational that I'll be able to take the reins.
Exactly. Let me just get all my energy out here. But no, because I was like, I need somebody who will have accurate takes that will correctly speculate as to the events and going-ons of the legendary 1988 science fiction OVA. Me, I'm just here speculating whatever comes to mind. I don't have a filter. I'm just saying whatever comes up. And as a result, I'm usually not on the money. But but you're more reserved. You're what a good like navigator or a good adjutant needs to be, right? You're the one who's like, actually, I've done the math. I've analyzed the situation, and this is how this is actually going to go.
Sure. Yep, I've done all the math.
Exactly.
It says right here that we're at the end of season 2.
Indeed. We are now officially, I believe you do the math, like 49.5%.
Yeah.
Through Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which we are just going to round up to 50.
Yep.
We are halfway through.
Yeah. Last week we did episodes 51 and 52, and this week we're doing episodes 53 and 54, the last 2 episodes of the second season of Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yes, we've somehow made it. It's been a long journey across the sea of stars, but
we've somehow made it to the halfway mark.
To the halfway point.
It's all downhill from here.
Yeah, that's usually what they say. But speaking of things that are all downhill from here, let's just get into the conclusion of the Battle of Vermilion.
Right. Episode 53, A Sudden Turn. Picking up right after that cliffhanger.
Yes.
Young's fleet is in firing range of the Brunhild. Gonna fire, but emergency message from Heinesen. The FPA is making an unconditional surrender to the Empire.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Fire.
Never been.
That is the reaction that everybody has.
Right. So I think Shenkop is everybody's spirit animal in this moment. When Shenkop is just like, he's begging Yang. He's like, fuck that shit. Yang, just pretend you didn't hear that. Yang, send a message saying you didn't hear the message and you request clarification. That'll give them it'll take them at least 30 minutes. Just take the shot. Take the fucking shot. Like, for the good of democracy, for the good of the FPA, for the future of mankind, take the shot.
Well, that's not who Yang Wenli is. He doesn't do it.
No, and we were reminded why.
Retreat.
Yes, we are reminded why we love Yang Wenli, because Yang Wenli in this moment understands.
Refuses to compromise on his principles.
Yes, and he understands the dangerous precedent such an action would make for the future of the FPA should a member of military personnel explicitly ignore an order from the civilian government.
Take things into their own hands.
Yes, and that's not what a democracy is. And if there's look, bless Yang Wenli. I mean, his actions here infuriate the more pragmatic and less principled of us. But let it be said, Yang Wenli is the true and original paladin for democracy. He truly believes in it. and he puts his money where his mouth is.
Yeah,
I do like
no one can accuse Young Win Lee of taking the easy path for personal gain.
No. I do like. I'm glad they kind of clarified it here, like that. Despite Mueller fucking showing up out of nowhere, I like that the implication of this. Excuse me. I like the implication of this scene, and I guess this was mostly from last week's episode or the last episode, that even with Mueller showing up, Yang Wen-li is such a good fleet commander. He was still able to get back into shooting distance of Reinhard. Like, even something as catastrophic as another admiral showing up at the last second was not enough to deter Yang Wen-li. And
he was about to get a decisive victory.
Yeah, let's, I mean, we'll get into this later once we switch back to Reinhard's perspective, but let's be clear here. Yang Wen-li, he objectively proves himself to be the better commander in this fight.
Yeah, and we even get a bit of Reinhard here, just fuming that they were about to win and then backed off.
Right. I mean, even
how dare they?
Right. I mean, even Reinhard is furious over this quote unquote victory. Like him, me, Shenkop, everybody. This is maybe the biggest blue balling in fiction history. We were denied our climax at the last and worst possible moments. But how did such a thing occur?
Yeah, we flash back 3 days ago, just in the middle of the battle at some point. And Hilda, who was sent away from the battle by Reinhard because he deemed it too dangerous, is meeting with Admiral Mittermeier.
Yeah, turns out she's joined up with Mittermeier and proposes a plan to Mittermeier.
Yeah.
And oh shit, this was I feel like of all the possible things we speculated could have been the linchpin to this battle,
right?
Hilda was not was not the X factor that would be it. But
other admirals maybe, but not Hilda,
not a non-combatant. No, it's a great reminder that oftentimes, I mean, we ourselves were guilty of this, that when it comes to battles of, when it comes to politicking and strategies, I think we are willing to consider the effects and actions of politicians and non-combatants. But in a battle, in a proper battle, we tend to forget about them. We tend to forget that these people still have agency and that their actions can have long-reaching consequences. And Hilda basically tells Mittermeier, I don't think Reinhard's going to win this battle. Or at least I suspect he's not going to. And that if we go with Reinhard's original plan, Reinhard will die. You guys will not reach him in time. Yang Wen-li is too dangerous. He is a source of disease. He possesses a dark and terrible power. and our Lord Reinhard will not. He will have gravely underestimated what that dark and terrible power is capable of. So, let's win his battle for him, basically.
Yeah. We've been saying the whole time that, Hilda's the smartest person in the room. Hilda's the smartest person in the room. And, now we both, on some level, we didn't expect her to make use of that.
We didn't expect her to. Here's the thing. When we always said Hilda was both, not only, a morally good person, but also, extremely intelligent, I think, for better or worse, we got caught up in the paradigm of, she's a supporting female character. She's going to use her moral goodness and her intelligence to, try and steer Reinhard in the right direction. But that's all the influence she'll ever have. What we didn't consider here is that Hilda
disobey orders.
Hilda is just as capable of bearing her own fangs as anybody in this show. And
she said straight out, Reinhard will die, and he does. I already asked him about this plan, and he said no, but let's do it anyway.
Yeah, and so basically, she proposes what she proposed originally to Reinhard, which is why bother fighting Yang Wen-li other than for your stupid pride? Just capture Heinesen. They'll capitulate. And then that'll force Yang to stand down.
Save Reinhard's life. And preserve everything he's made of the Empire so far.
Yeah, and it's kind of an interesting thing where she specifically tells Mittermeier about this, because she kind of correctly guesses that Mittermeier is the right mix of loyal to Reinhard, but also, like, not only pragmatic, but also, like, what's the word? Like, sincere of heart, I guess. Like Mittermeier will listen to this plan, and he's not the kind of admiral that will turn this into a politics play. He's the type of admiral who will carry out this plan not for the glory or for the honor, or for, gaining standing with Reinhard, but because
he believes it to be the right thing to do for the Empire.
Right. Unfortunately, Mittermeier also reveals this other flaw, which is where Hilda's like, but we should probably get another admiral in on this. And Mittermeier is like, I know the perfect admiral for this, my buddy Royenthal. And Hilda's like, okay, maybe that's the one aspect of this plan I didn't think through.
I mean, she chose to go to Mittermeier rather than Royenthal. Because,
right. I mean, of the two,
I think knowing that, I think she knew also going to Mittermeier would cause him to bring in Royenthal. But
I think she does, but I think at the same time, she also was kind of... I think, because you're right, her two best options were either Royenthal or Mittermeier, in terms of, like,
none of the other admirals could pull off this plan and...
No, definitely not.
...be seen legitimately, I suppose,
right.
is the idea.
I guess that's... yes, you're correct. In a sense, Mittermeier and Royenthal occupy a...
They're the twin stars of the Empire.
Yeah, they occupy a unique position, which, while they are not explicitly higher ranked than the other admirals, they carry a clout to their actions, which... in some ways protects them from the consequences of those actions sometimes. And that between those two options, Mittermeier is the safer choice, because you go to Royenthal with this plan, and I mean, Hilda very much makes the very correct, like, fear, like, a skeptic guess that she's not saying it's 100% for sure that if Royenthal does this, he's going to use this as a power play.
But we all know that Royenthal has a hidden ambition within of him.
Yes, Royenthal is ambitious, and so far he has proven himself to be a very loyal and competent commander. But there's this unspoken idea that even, like, not just us, the audience, but even people like Hilda know that there is a lifespan to this loyalty. And that there is a danger in giving him too much glory, because with every victory Royenthal earns, he earns a little bit more prestige and a little bit more personal loyalty to him. And but unfortunately, those politics are to be considered for another day.
And so the twin stars ride their fleets up on Heinesen and hold everyone hostage, blow up strategic command.
Yeah, and they just bomb a bunch of government buildings.
Surrender, or we will commence bombardment.
Yeah, and then fucking, of course, now that, the FPA government has to consider, do we hold out at risk to our personal lives in the hope that Yang's plan succeeds, or do we roll over like a bunch of fucking cowards? And thankfully, Job fucking Truniht shows up to help us make that decision.
I mean, he's head chairman or whatever, right?
Yes, who had just conveniently been in hiding up until now. He decided, actually, I'm gonna try and do my job again, quote unquote.
And immediately agree to the surrender of the Imperial forces.
Right. And, like, Job Truniht doesn't even, like, try to hide behind pretense of, like, I'm doing this for the good of the people.
It's kind of interesting it's kind of interesting to see this, like, a mere episode after we see Cochrane roll over for Mueller, because Cochrane's actions are presented as
for the preservation of the lives he's responsible for.
And Job Trunicht's actions are presented as self-preservation at the cost of the people.
It's kind of interesting in a way. I almost kind of... Again, I don't mean to tie this back to modern politics too much, but it's kind of fascinating to watch, like... Because I think in many ways, Job Truniht is the embodiment of, like, modern far-right politics in this, or political strategies in the sense of, like, using gaslighting and dog whistles to hide his true intentions. Like, up until now, Job Trunicht has been gleeful about his, I'm just doing this for the people. He has just been hiding behind,
we must fight the Empire at all costs.
Right.
Let me send this offensive out. Let me take in the Kaiser. Let me do whatever the fuck it takes to keep my position.
He has been hiding his intentions behind, blatantly false rhetoric. And, everybody has called him out, that's bullshit, you don't believe that. And he's like, well, can you prove it? And until now, when, I think this is, a great, example of, why we should not fall for those tricks. Because once these people... Sorry, go ahead, Iro.
No, it's okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, once these people no longer need to hide behind those tricks, their true colors come out. And they often come out once it's too late to stop them. And that's Job Trunicht in a nutshell. He's just like, fuck it, I was just here for self-preservation and personal gain this whole time, so I'm surrendering. And since I'm the leader,
doing my duty.
And you have this great part here where Bucock fucking just.
But even before that, Island calls him out. Who's been one of the other shitty politicians,
right? And Job Trunicht
calls him out, and Job Trunicht just lays out all the. Oh, well, you brought me gifts and begged me for, you bribed me for positions, you, took collection money, etc., etc.,
Yeah, it's some prime whataboutism, Again, another rhetoric tactic used by this crowd.
Sure, Islands might be shitty a politician as well, but also... his criticisms are correct.
Right. It's and not only that, but say what you will about Islands, and there's a lot to say about how shitty he is. But even him in this situation was willing to entertain the idea of, no, we gotta hold out because Yang might kill Reinhard.
Right. To save to preserve the Free Plants Alliance over their own skins.
Yeah. And Job is hearing fucking none of it. He's just nope, the only thing I care about is my personal safety, and as long as I'm the one who holds all the reins here...
And actually, it's all Yang's fault.
Right, and then he says he blames, well, if Yang had destroyed the Artemis necklace, and it's fucking... Who fucking let the NSMC rise to power in the first place? Whose incompetent choices allowed all of this to happen? Fucking way to shift blame, you fucking rat-fink son of a bitch. Fucking, and then here we go. Yes, I'd skip some parts, but then Bucock is bless Bucock. He fucking moralizes on Trunicht so fucking hard, he's just Bucock is just calling him out, and who hindered Yang's actions at the expense of his own safety? Who spoke of democracy from their lips but were too weak to carry it out? Who did that? Who forced Yang into the situations he did? Who forced Yang to destroy the Artemis necklace? Who forced Yang to be the linchpin of our entire country, nation's survival? It was you. It was you, Job Trunicht, you awful piece of shit. And then Bucock, even Bucock, fucking bastion of democracy and proper court and doing things the right way, says, and it says and if I have to physically detain you to preserve democracy, I will. But unfortunately,
Trunicht calls in his Earthclaw goons.
Yeah,
I'll just run in
and just arrest the entire FPA leadership
at gunpoint.
Yeah, and then Job Trunicht's well, I'm gonna go make my democratically elected decision now. And he's God, what a fucking piece of shit. God damn it, Job Trunicht is literally the you know what? We were talking about how we thought that what's his name, Lang was maybe the slimiest motherfucker, and maybe he was the slimiest motherfucker in that concentrated 5 minutes we met him.
Right.
But over the course of this entire show, let it not be forgotten.
The fucking worst.
Job Trunicht is the fucking worst. Truly the scummiest individual I have ever had the displeasure of seeing in fiction. Words fail me to describe the litany of feelings I have for this maligned thing that happens to take the form of a man.
Yeah,
but,
Soldiers are not happy, and Julian goes to speak with Shenkop
Yeah.
to
This is back on the Hyperion.
to basically show everything he's learned from Yang Wenli, and that
Yeah.
the democracy must make sure to regulate the military. If we disobeyed orders in such a way, be a dangerous precedent, etc., etc.
But
Shen-
I like this conversation a lot between Shenkop and Julian because
Shenkop asks, like, well, if should you obey immoral orders then?
right, and Julian says, well, of course not. There are exceptions. And Shenkop's like, then how do you define those exceptions? How do you define when and where is a soldier's moral obligation? And it kind of gets into this conversation we had in the previous podcast of like the moral obligations of a soldier are different from that of a normal person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is a soldier's obligation? Like, the livelihood of his nation and the people who live within it. And how does a soldier carry out that moral obligation? He carries it out through the destruction of his enemy. And there's kind of a good back and forth here because there's even a part where Shenkop basically like asks like Julian, do you actually believe what you're saying? Like,
right.
And there's a part where Julian kind of admits like, no, this frustrates me. Like, of course, like there's a part where I think Julian says something along the lines of like, it doesn't matter what I think. Yang is our commander, and this is the choice he made.
Right.
And he doesn't explicitly say anything more than that, but there's kind of this good like implication that like we've seen it up till now. Julian is a little bit more pragmatic than Yang. Julian, I don't know if Julian would have taken the shot in the same position, but I think Julian might have considered it. Like,
right.
Whereas, because there is something to be said about like, okay, like if we commit, like, because here's the thing, right? Like, Yang thinks of the long term. Yang thinks of, well, I want to make sure I don't set this precedent because, like, what if somebody uses this precedent to excuse their horrible actions 200 years in the future? Whereas I think Julian is more the kind of person who's like, okay, yes, but like, what about the people living now?
I mean, it's the constant back and forth between, like, to be lawful or good, I guess.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a difficult situation. Like, nobody in the world could condemn Yang for what he's done.
Oh, but I think plenty could.
Well, okay. I mean, in many ways, I think there will be a difference on opinion amongst historians on this for sure, because I guess it is kind of a long run thing. Like, and here's the thing: we don't know because we don't know where this show goes. But like, what if Yang's actions here? I mean, they've already doomed the FPA.
Like, it's like Truniht said, like, how dare Yang not think about the future in those actions, right?
Yeah, but it's like, actually, the future is maybe the only thing Yang ever thinks about. And like, I don't know, is there an argument to be made that Yang doesn't think enough in the present? Like, he is so concerned with the precedents he might set.
Maybe, but like, you could also make the argument that like, the future's problems need to be dealt with by the future, and that we should focus on the present's problems.
Yes, totally. And it's a tough situation. It really is. And that's kind of why I like, because here's the thing. Like, unlike Yang, who is very much, I don't mean to say Yang is not a soldier. He is he's an officer in the military. But Julian and Shenkop are very much could be more accurately described as soldiers. And it is always very interesting to see a conversation between two soldiers who fundamentally, have, maybe similar mindsets, but, different ideologies on how those long-term goals can and should be achieved.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and here, I think as Legend of the Galactic Heroes often does, there is no easy answer. There is no easy answer on what a soldier should do and when a soldier should,
none of these things are necessarily presented as the correct decision.
Right. It's kind of. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. None of it's necessarily presented as what ought to be done in this situation. It's just.
It's. It's tough,
It's what
man.
these characters believe.
Yeah, and as we as the audience are kind of left to just
like I can't say for sure whether what Yang Winley did is the correct decision, but I accept it as what Yang Winley believes to be the correct decision.
exactly. His action completely falls in line with the character that he has been built up to be up until now. You know, and in many ways, that is kind of the sign of like Legend of the Galactic Heroes' greatest strength is its characters.
We talk a lot about how like the position of the nebulous like work as a whole of what it believes, but
Right.
in situations like these, it's consistent with what the characters believe, whether or not that's the right thing.
Exactly, totally. But anyways, we kind of get back. There's okay, before this, there's just one quick bit here that I just couldn't help but kind of ruefully laugh at.
Right. I mean,
Mittermeier,
Reinhard
are like, are talking with Hilda, and they've accepted the FPA surrender, and they're all just kind of commenting on how surprisingly weak the FPA are, like just how much of
roll over,
just how fucking spineless they are. Like they were like, well, we thought they'd hold out for maybe a couple days, but no, they've rolled right over. Wow. And it's like, it's one of those frustrating things where, like, obviously, I mean, here's the thing. Narratively, of course, it makes sense for the sake of drama that the missive from the FPA arrives to Yang right before he orders the shot. But then it's also frustrating in the sense of, like, fucking, if John Truniht had literally, like, went to the bathroom before he declared his surrender.
The pacing of the narrative, like, presentation makes it seem that if it was like 30 seconds later, we would have got him.
Yeah, but, exactly. I mean, obviously that's for drama's sake. We don't know actually, how that all works out. But
the time scale of these shows is pretty wide. Like, it just, we're watching within
anyways, 20 minutes. With the FPA, at least on paper, officially defeated, Yang begins to make plans for what needs to be done next. And we have a bit here where Schneider, Merkatz's adjutant, argues that if Merkatz does not leave, the Alliance government will probably hand you over to the Empire. That you will be forced to take responsibility.
He's a deserter. No matter how you look at it, he defected.
Yeah. No, he is a defector. Like, and that is high treason, regardless of whether you agree those actions or not. And Yang kind of says, "You're right." Like. But you know what, Merkatz, I'm sorry, but I still have use of you left. So,
but also Merkatz is not a official member of the Alliance military brass,
right.
So he's in a unique position to, as Yang puts it, lead a movement in Sherwood Forest like the legends of Robin Hood of old.
Right. So Yang asks Merkatz to kind of preserve, what is left of the Alliance fleet. Kind of flee into space. Personnel. Yeah, and act as a guerrilla force. I think they say, who goes with Merkatz here? It was
Poplin does. Some of the Rosenritter
guys. Right, yes. Yeah, which, you know what? Look, man, if fucking we get to the adventures of fucking freedom fighter Poplin, fucking in deep space, I am so down for that. So
yeah, but a lot of the other FPA main cast must stay behind.
Yeah, well, not too many of them can leave. Too many of them disappear, and it's going to look weird, so...
Yeah.
Some got to stay behind and take the heat for what will likely be the Empire's reprisal against them. We had a cute moment here where Yang and Frederica alone, kind of, have a sweet little kiss here. Because at least at the moment in this episode, it's kind of implied we don't know what Yang's fate will be. Like...
Right.
Is Yang going to be captured and sent back to the Empire? Will he be forced to face tribunal for war crimes? Will he be tried as a criminal for his actions?
Yeah. And even Yang says, I don't... Like, if anyone else did what I just did, I'd call them a fool. But this is the only way I know how to live my life.
Yeah. It's the most fucking... That is the most fucking Yang sentence in the goddamn world. Like... That at its core, right? If anyone else did this, I would call them a fool, but I don't know how else to live my life.
Same.
Yeah, big mood, my guy. We finally cut back to Reinhard, who, as we said before, still super fucking pissed over this victory.
In a way, it's like almost satisfying to see,
Yes.
like, he has to live knowing
Right, he has to live knowing that Yang, you know what,
beat him
fucking Yang
again.
once again, Yang held him dead to rights.
Again, it's
Again.
source of disease, a trickster.
Right. Like, in many ways, like, I mean, obviously this is bad for the FPA and its civilians, but there's something very deeply satisfying about knowing that once again, Reinhard has been handed a victory he can take no joy in. Just
Yeah, and we got some, like, casualty numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Over 2.5 million people died in one battle.
2.5 million killed. The Imperial fleet suffered 87% casualties. The FPA fleet, 81%. Like,
considering the number difference between the two.
Oh, yeah, considering the number difference, that implies the FPA fleet was basically, like, running at a, like, 1 to 5 kill-death ratio.
Fucking
which is
Perry shit.
Yeah, it's some fucking crazy shit, you know, I mean, you know, let it be said, you know, fucking
Yang Wen-Li.
Yeah, Yang Wen-Li don't fuck around. You know, you fuck with, you know, you try to fuck with him, he'll throw an asteroid at you.
Alright. And
But anyways, with that finished, we kind of roll into episode 54.
Episode 54, Sieg Kaiser.
Yeah, so in case you didn't know, like, where this was all going for our friend Reinhard here, that title kind of gets to the core of it.
Like, they go into how neither side considered themselves the victor in the Battle of Vermilion, and that future historians, many arguments were had about who won the Battle of Vermilion.
Right, they would debate for years on who truly won the Battle of Vermilion. You know, who won strategically versus tactically, who won in the moment, and who won in the long run.
Yeah, and that nobody ever truly came to agreement.
Yes, which is some very good shit. But yeah, so we find out that Merkatz has bailed. He's taken with him a mere 60 ships and 11,000 men, which is, considering the number of the size of fleets we are used to in this show, 60 is a pittance.
Nothing. Yeah.
But at the same time, we find out that only 3,000 Alliance ships remain after the Battle of Vermilion, which, if you take that 85 or 81% number into account, means that, like, at max strength, Yang's fleet was, like, at most, like, hovering around 30k.
Right.
Maybe closer to, like, 24.
They said it was, like, I think they said it was, like 17 to 20,000 ships.
Oh, okay, yeah, like, even less. Yeah, it's, But yeah, so Yang Wen-Li has been captured, or quote-unquote captured, and is being escorted to...
they bring him in.
They bring him in. Yeah, they bring him into
it's finally time.
To the Brunhilde to meet with Reinhard von Lohengrin.
He meets Mueller.
Right, there's a great bit here where...
I'm surprised Mueller didn't just immediately pounce on him with a knife or something.
Right. Mueller, Mr. I swear upon my blood that I will kill Yang Wen-Li, is surprisingly affable with him. I guess he was not that broken up.
Anyone has earned respect is Yang Wen-Li.
Yeah. I guess it's more. I guess Mueller was really not that fucking broken up about Kempf's death. So, you know.
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah, we kind of get a neat meeting here where, you know,
Mueller says, if you had been born on our side, I would have wanted to study under you. You're so great. You're like so good at tactics. And Yang says, I wish you'd been born on our side, because then I could just be taking a nap right now.
It's so good. It's basically implying, if you're on our side,
I wouldn't have to fucking worry about anything. we wouldn't even be here.
Yeah. But there's kind of a great bit here. I think one of the soldiers is like, "That's Yang Wen-Li."
That's him.
Like, this source of disease. This shabby looking motherfucker is the magician. But a moment that I frankly thought might never happen thematically. Reinhard and Yang Wen-Li.
The show, like,
they finally meet face to face, and kind of great bit, you know, where you kind of think Reinhard's been like, "I've been dreaming of this day." You know? It's like, okay, keep it in your pants, Reinhard. I know you've been looking for your surrogate replacement Kirky eyes, but I don't think Yang is that man.
And as Reinhard does, makes an offer for Yang to come over to the Empire side, serve under him as an admiral.
And
Of course,
Yang,
Young says no.
of course, Yang says no, but Yang being Yang, plays it humble. Like, I wouldn't be of service to you, Reinhard. You have
Mhm.
so great admirals already. I'd be nothing. And
Right.
there's a great
But
bit
if
right
I'd
before this,
been
though,
born in the Empire, I would have willingly served you. Of course,
yeah.
absolutely.
But I was born and raised in the FPA, and like
Yeah,
that's
and my loyalty research is reserved for democracy.
yeah. Before that, there's a great bit here I just want to get into very quickly because there's no other excuse to bring it up. It's just Reinhardt starts this conversation by saying, "Do you remember when I sent you a message at the Battle of Astante?
Why didn't you call me back?
You didn't respond to me.
You
Why
didn't, you
didn't you
didn't
answer?
text, you didn't text me back, Young Winley.
Why didn't you reply to my text? Facebook says that you saw it. It says you read it." But yes, so we finally get into this conversation of Yang and Reinhardt's ideologies kind of clashing, but kind of between Yang's loyalty to democracy and but then Reinhardt kind of arguing democracy. Oh, you mean the form of government that your very own ruler, chosen by your people, have handed you over to me? You mean that democracy?
I mean, as Reinhardt says, democracy is may claim to be the rule of words, huh? Reinhardt claims that democracy, though claiming to be chosen by the will of the citizens, removes their individual agency.
Right. It's I hate to say, but it is some real primo fucking libertarian ass shit. Of oh, actually, democracy removes your individuality and your personal voice. But yeah, and then we have this great bit here where Reinhardt's like, Young, you can't deny the efficiency of a strong government, and Young just replies, I can. Because Yang says that, yes, you're right. A strong government can make quick, rapid action. Like your rule, Reinhard, it has been fantastic for your people. It has made you have moved faster, more efficiently than the FPA ever could. But you know what? The right to violate the rights of people belongs to the people. We the people deserve to choose our own self-destruction if it comes to that. It
Yep.
Once again kind of gets to the core of Yang Wenli's beliefs.
Yeah. No matter how great Reinhardt is, he's a singular existence.
Right. Yang
how many rulers must there be in your government ruled by a small class?
Yeah.
To achieve such change.
Right, totally. Yang basically lays out that look. Reinhard, yeah, you're great. You're amazing. You're magnificent. And you're so pretty and hot and cool. But, Reinhard, how many Reinhard von Lohengrams come in a century? In a millennium? How long did the Galactic Empire have to exist for until Reinhard von Lohengram came about? How many centuries did it take? How many centuries of suffering did your people who had no political agency have to suffer before you came around? And how long will they have to wait once you're gone?
Yep.
And
yeah, maybe there is some sort of ideological truth that will solve everything and answer every question and be perfect for everybody, but
Reinhard doesn't believe in that. Yeah, we kind of have another great part of their conversation where, yes, Yang says the part that you just mentioned, Iro, and Reinhard has a very much a different perspective.
Well, even Yang says perhaps there is, but I don't know it.
Right, and Reinhard says that perhaps we don't need an absolute truth. What is the need? What is the need for an absolute truth so long as I can accomplish my dreams with my own hands, basically? Because then why care for the pursuit of an absolute truth if I can create my own absolute truth? And and of course somehow fucking Reinhard manages to shoehorn into this conversation that if only Kirky Eyes were here. I had a dear friend once, though. I do like the implication that
Kirky Eyes that they would stand at the front always. Yeah, what he said basically.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think we do kind of have this good bit here where, despite the fact that, this whole conversation basically exists to 100% establish
To pit
Reinhard and Yang will never agree with each other.
Pit their ideologies against each other.
Like
they're fundamentally incompatible.
Yes. That like no matter how badly Reinhard wants someone like Yang to serve him, and no matter how badly Yang might think Reinhard maybe actually does have the right idea, their ideologies are incompatible. Like but at the same time, this kind of gets into the thing you kind of brought up a little while back, though, and that they do agree on some objective good truths in the universe. There are they agree that there are some things in this world certainly worth striving for to create, but just the ways and the methods they would use to approach that will never they'll never see eye to eye on that. But what they will see eye to eye on is that, if nothing else, we can agree, fuck bad leadership. Fuck cowardly politicians.
Yep. And but Yang Wenli, if I dare to let you go now, what would you do?
Yes, and Yang just wants to retire.
I'm done with this shit.
I'm done, man. Congratulations. You beat the FPA.
I'm out of here. I'm out of quarters for the Street Fighter machine.
Exactly. Whatever, home. Man. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done.
Such close match. Don't you want to fight again? Don't you want to keep trying? I'm out of quarters, dude.
I'm good. There's a part here where Reinhard says, Yang, I'm not a vengeful man. Bullshit, you are, Reinhard.
Yeah. Fucking
Reinhard,
bullshit.
You fucking liar. You are the most fucking vengeful dude I know in this show.
Oh, boy.
But,
yeah, and so the Empire has taken Heinesen and taken the FPA.
Yes, and they have not officially dissolved the FPA, but it is now under Empire.
Setting up all their stuff.
Yes.
And we find out that bungling poet Landsberg has fled with Child Kaiser.
Once again, old Landsberg up to his tricks.
It's just, yep.
We get another bit here where
search for him.
Yes, but yes, Reinhard doesn't even really want to bother because it's like, fuck it, whatever, right? Like, the fuck is that Kaiser gonna do now? But I'm kind of curious if that'll maybe bite him in the ass someday down the line. We'll see. But yeah, so Julian is getting ready to move out because because Yang and even Yang and Frederick are kind of looking for a new house, because once Yang retires, he won't have the officers' housing anymore. Yang keeps problematically pointing at Mashengo, saying, "Who is that?"
It's like it's a running gag of, why is Mashengo here again?
Right. Right, Julian has to remind Yang that poor Mashengo here was given orders 12 episodes ago, and you have not given him new orders since then, so he has just been trying his very best to carry out the same orders you gave him all the while back.
Protecting Julian.
Protecting and accompanying Julian, yes, so good soldier he is. Yeah, even helping them move out, so... what a guy. But
and so we established that while sorry, 1 second. While Yang, Shenkop, and Dusty Attenborough and Bucock have all officially retired, the rest of the FPA squad are still in administration, etc.
Yes. That in this kind of new era for the FPA, it's we're not going to need fleet commanders anymore. We're going to need, admin and logistics guys, So, Kazanu, for example, was not allowed to retire because
he's working in logistics now.
Yes. We got a bit here where Reinhard is thinking about how we're going to deal with, kind of how we're going to administrate the FPA. And all Oberstein's here with a very helpful suggestion of, we should focus on impoverishing the people of the FPA. We will, if we economically and culturally, marginalize them, that will bring them under heel quicker.
Yep.
Which is a real Oberstein-esque suggestion.
Yeah, and they signed the Treaty of Bartlett, which
Yes.
is the official ceasefire.
Yeah.
Job Truniht is resigning, and there are riots in the streets because everybody has finally realized that he's a piece of
Finally.
shit,
Yes. It
which
only
is
took
like
fucking.
some fucking wishful thinking right there.
Yeah. It is the most fucking like. It is the most fucking rueful fucking like. Of course, the fucking people turn on the politician after he's already done all the harm. You know, like y'all couldn't have like fucking got in on this. Oh, I don't know, like 20 episodes ago.
Yeah,
But
and we had a bit with Huang Lewis and
Labello.
Joanne Lobello, who are they note the irony that although legally now after the FPA surrendered, now they're still called the FPA legally, whereas before in the Empire legally they were just the like rebel element or whatever.
Yes. And we kind of, once again, we are reminded that old LaBelle here continues to be the platonic ideal of what a politician should be. Like Huang Lewis kind of like
just like cynical,
but also like dedicated to the ideals of his position.
Mm-hmm.
Like Huang Lewis kind of rhetorically asks, like, what's the point of us now that the FPA is no longer what it is? And LaBelle retorts that no, like actually now more than ever, it is important that we try to preserve the ideals of what this nation stood for. Like even with the Empire trying to like, impose their laws and their beliefs on us, now is when we must try to preserve what the FPA stood for. And
yeah,
good on you, Labello.
Yep. And Reinhard appoints Admiral Lenin Kamp as the consul of the FPA.
Yes,
after having to be talked out of appointing Roenthal.
Yes,
because Oberstein also recognizes the potential danger of Roenthal.
Yes, I mean, I think increasing number of people in the Empire room are beginning to recognize, like,
yes,
Roenthal might be up to some shit. Like, he's not, like, the thing is that, like, Roenthal has not done anything yet, of course. Like, we even get internal monologues with Roenthal being like, now's not the time, but,
right,
one day. Like, Roenthal's making it pretty clear he's got plans, he's got ambitions, and that making him the consul of the FPA would be a perilous choice.
Indeed.
On the other hand, assigning a dude as fucking incompetent as Lenin Compt as consul to the FPA, I'm very curious if that will have any long-running consequences.
And
but
Reinhard is supposed to meet with Job Truniht, but straight up is just like, I don't wanna.
Yes, we get a little bit of bratty.
He's a jerk. I don't want to talk to him.
Right, we get a little bit of bratty Reinhard again. He's like, what did I win the universe for if I still have to meet with people like Job Truniht? Like, we do get some good bits here and there where it is kind of satisfying to see someone as powerful as Reinhard rightfully chastise.
Still act like a 20-year-old or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I still act like a brat, but then also finally somebody with power superior to Job Truniht calling out Job Truniht on the piece of shit he is.
Right. But he promised to not, like, part of the agreements in the treaty were to not, like, not persecute the top brass.
Yeah.
And so, fine, just let him go to the Empire or whatever.
Right, because what Job Truniht, his proposal was he wanted to accompany Reinhard back to Odin.
Yeah, and act as an officer or something.
Yes, which is it's very, very true to Job Truniht behavior of just fucking
self-serving. I'll ditch whatever it is to
for my own personal gain. Yes,
and Reinhard apologizes to Hilda basically.
Yeah, saying like, I'm sorry, I've been such a.
I know you saved my life, but I cannot bring myself to thank you for this.
Yeah. It's a very Reinhard move. Like, I mean, it's very Reinhard to acknowledge that I'm Reinhard as fuck, but also I'm still not going to apologize because that's who I am.
Yeah.
It's basically kind of a non-apology of like, I'm sorry for who I am.
Yeah.
Which, that's maybe as much as you could hope to get out of Reinhard, especially these days.
And Boris Konev finally meets up with Young Winley.
Yes, they finally meet up after all this time.
Took long enough.
Yeah, kind of.
Konev, this dude was introduced like episode 15 or so.
Yeah,
with like, oh, I'm here to talk to Young Winley. Still has not met up with Young Winley.
Yeah, still not gotten a chance until now.
Just now, I guess.
Yeah. They kind of talk a bit. Konev meets Julian. It's
because Julian rode on this ship.
Yeah, sorry about your ship.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I do want to say, I want to ask you, what do you think of Boris Konev?
What do you mean, what do I think of Boris Konev?
I think he's still a spy.
Yeah, I think so. I suspect as much.
I think there's a lot of I feel like there's a lot of narrative tricks to make us trust him.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree. I think there is still an element of Boris Konev that cannot be trusted. Because even though we have seen that Boris Konev himself resents the job he's been given, like, the fact that they have not addressed his spying assignment up until now tells me that it is probably the intent of the writers to get us to slowly forget about that.
Plus, because Ivan Konev died recently, I think we naturally want to latch on to Boris Konev.
Right, yes.
And, he's been so helpful. He's going to take you into Earth. It'll be great.
Yes. And, I mean, here's the thing. I think the vibe I get from Boris Konev is that he's fundamentally a decent person, but at the same time, the assignment he's been given, it does not look like what he has necessarily given up on yet, Even if Phezzan is in the state it is in, he still holds loyalty to his paymasters, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that necessarily means that Julian is at risk or anything. I think Boris will probably honor his end of the deal and take Julian to Earth, but
it's something I'm keeping in the back of my mind.
Oh, definitely. It's yet another fucking running plot point in this show. We have to just consider in the background.
Speaking of running plot points,
yes, we cut
to
the
middle of some mountain on Earth or something.
Yes, we cut to Earth Cult headquarters on Earth. Yes,
the Earth Church.
Yes,
their crazy ass cave.
Yes, they're fucking
effigies of man stenciled onto the fucking stalactites.
Right. They're fucking, fucking Batman
boss,
cave,
JRPG cave.
Right. We once again see.
I'll offer you half the world, hero. Join me.
Yes. We get that we are reintroduced to the fucking Emperor Palpatine ass fucking Grand Bishop. Yes,
and his subordinate De Villiers or something.
Yeah. It's just, oh my god, the Earth Cult, we've said it a million times, but the Earth Cult is just so much. The
Earth Cult love how this show will be very high-minded, modern politics, and then also crazy space battles and people exploding with guts everywhere, and then also, the pseudo, not medieval, but the borderline feudal power structures of the Empire.
Yes.
And then also
the fucking Earth Cult.
These wizards.
Looking
in their crystal ball.
Yeah, it's just the Earth Cult just represent an entire different third of this show, and it is truly something to behold.
Yeah, and they basically say they're still keeping an eye on everybody, including Rubinsky, even though Rubinsky's been in hiding since the Empire took Phezzan.
Right, but they correctly guessed that Rubinsky has his own agenda, and that he needs to be kept an eye on.
They still have a powerful card to play, a deathly ill man in the Empire.
Yes, basically they are. Basically, they still have Count Landsberg.
Landsberg's the bungling poet. Baron Kuhnmel.
Yes, Baron Kuhnmel. My bad.
Number one Mecklinger fan in the galaxy.
He is still in the Earth Cult's back pocket, and they are
as long as he lives another half a year, they'll have achieved their objective.
And that is definitely an interesting, angle to take on all of this.
I'm curious what the Earth Cult's crazy plan is.
Right,
I want to know.
Right. And
what could they possibly do?
Right, and not only that, but they also offhandedly mention Job Truniht. Like, I mean, they mentioned in the case of he has used, he has lived out
Back
his
in the Empire,
usefulness,
or whatever. Yeah.
but also, again, for reasons unbeknownst to me, Reinhard still agrees to take Job Trunicht back to Odin. So
he is
that
still an element in this show.
yes, even though he has lost his power in the FPA, apparently Job Trunicht is still a card in play, which is a dangerous thing because I am kind of curious because all of Job Trunicht's tricks, all of the tricks he used to gain power in the FPA, specifically worked by exploiting the inherent structural weaknesses of democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Those structural weaknesses do not exist in an autocracy. Like, Job Trunicht cannot gaslight and dog whistle in the Empire because you can only do that in a liberal democracy where you can hide behind like concepts like freedom of speech and due process.
Right.
But in an
You
empire,
create euphemisms for your bullshit ideas.
right, you can use euphemisms and hide behind a veneer of civility because that is inherently what democracies support and protect. But you can't use those tricks in an empire. You can't make innuendo about overthrowing Reinhard and taking control for yourself.
No.
Because all Reinhard has to do is say,
Lang, secret police will come down on top of you.
right. Like, all Reinhard has to be like, I don't like the tone of your voice. Blat. Like, you don't gotta fucking have a trial for him. Like,
yeah. So,
but because
what are the Earth?
Like, my
what's the Earth cult's like plan? I guess.
Yeah. Not only their plan, like, what is their plan for all of their cards? Because unlike the Empire or the FPA or even Phezzan, the Earth cult's cards are very nebulous. They're not well defined. They're not well defined in the way that things like fleet strength or material capacity, are understood. Their strength is held in a much more like nebulous concept.
Our plan will definitely work in 6 months.
Right. Not even that, but it's even just like things like, how can they be so confident that, as far as we know, right? Like, as far as we saw with that one episode, Baron Kunmel doesn't necessarily have that much power.
He's just some dude.
He's just an ailing noble. There's probably hundreds or thousands like him in the Empire of just like, I don't mean sickly ill nobles, but like nobles who are maybe well off but don't have
Mecklinger fans.
Yeah, exactly. Hundreds or thousands of Mecklinger
decided to mobilize all of his fans.
Yeah. Oh man, that's dangerous. You gotta be careful about that.
Maybe he's the admiral we really need to keep an eye on.
Maybe that's the real reason Reinhard kept Mecklinger back on Odin. Didn't want him getting too much power.
I wonder if what if Mecklinger is a pawn of the Earth Gold?
Oh, I hope not. I like Mecklinger too much. That would be tragic. We haven't seen Mecklinger in ages. Man, I hope he's doing all right.
Yeah, but we end up the season though with Reinhard claiming the crown.
Yes, Reinhard is officially crowned the Kaiser.
Yeah. But the two people he wanted to see the most were not there.
Yeah,
only Kirk guys were here.
Only Kirk guys were here, and if only
could be asked to like drive out to the capital for the coronation, but I guess not.
Right, it's one of those things. It's like, again, I understand. I think I understand Anna Rose's mentality, but I don't entirely really get her reasoning for like this complete and absolute separation from Reinhard. But
it shows treating her like she's dead.
Yeah, which is like, it's weird, yes, because she's not dead. Like, hell, now that Reinhard is in power, shouldn't she feel safer to see him again? Now that ostensibly she doesn't have to worry as much about assassination attempts or anything anymore.
I don't know. That's not why she is in.
No. I know Anna Rose's mentality is her fucking stupid self-sacrificial. Like, fucking, it's my fault. Kirky Eyes is dead or something. It's like, whatever. But yes, Reinhard is officially crowned the Kaiser, and with that, we are done with season 2.
Halfway mark. Yes. Halfway through the show, Reinhard has won the universe.
Yes, which we'll get in this in the next part of our podcast, is how, in many ways, how scary it is that Reinhard has won his position in the universe, but we are only halfway through this show. Because what are the remaining 50-ish episodes of this show going to be about if Reinhard has already won?
As I tend to say every podcast, I have no idea where the show's going from here.
Yeah, it's
Not the slightest.
It's a wild new world out there. And we're going to talk about some of that in a bit. But for now, we're going to call this the first portion of this podcast. As some of you might have heard or know, since this is the end of season 2, we're gonna reconvene after the break with a couple of extra guests. Kind of to talk about our overall feelings about the second season. Our thoughts about what Legend of the Galactic Heroes has been doing for us so far, and maybe a little speculation about what's to come next, and maybe some other fun topics for us to bullshit about.
Yeah, look forward to it in a few minutes.
So with that, I leave you all for now, and I hope you'll tune in for the next part. Welcome back, dear listeners. You've returned to Legend of the Galactic... Boy, I fucked this up already. You've returned to Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, where today we are doing our wrap-up for Season 2. Once again, I'm your host, G, and with me is my co-host, Iro.
Yeah, hi.
Yes.
The two Galactic Heroes, two GLORIO Heroes.
Yes, we are the Galactic Heroes. But behind every great galactic hero are equally great adjectives,
minor characters,
yes, who form an important weave of the narrative and setting and add a little bit of extra flavor every now and then. We have some of those amongst us today, hungry to share their takes and maybe share some of their fan fiction with us. We have GLORIO Chat and Maestro himself, Gel, with here. Welcome back, Private Gel.
I mean, can I at least be like the Mercats of this podcast?
Gel's the real GLORIO hero, if we're really honest.
Well, in fact, I have good news for you, Private. I've decided that because of your good behavior, you're going to make a Commodore in no time. And perhaps someday, you'll even get the chance to show me a clipboard that's going to showcase my impending doom. And I'm going to ignore it.
I'm real good at that, so yeah.
And then also here today with us is GLORIO Italian correspondent, Marlon.
Yeah, I'm probably just one of those guys that dies in a ship. Just like...
Marlon, do you...
and then someone stares lovingly at their photo of Truniht.
If I'm lucky.
Marlon, as our Italian correspondent, do you know what is the current papal dictate on who is better, Yang or Reinhard, or are they still operating to the 1997 declaration that Kirky Eyes remains the best boy?
I think Pope Francis would probably be on the side of the not tyrant, but who knows?
I mean, these are often controversial decisions that often resonate throughout the ages.
St.
Thomas Aquinas would be on Reinhard's side. He was more of a righteous king kind of guy.
Well, if there's anything Reinhard is, it's certainly righteous.
G, you said we only had 3 hours for this, so maybe we should not get into that.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to warm up the room a little bit, but you're right. Let's get, with the introductions out of the way, let's just get right into it. You could say, like always, we have an interesting 26 episodes to talk about here. So, is it 26? I don't actually know the exact number. 28, my bad. We have an interesting 28 episodes on our hands here to discuss.
Yep.
So we should just get right into it. So I'd like to start with the new voices here, because I think, for better or worse, I think our lovely listeners kind of already know mine and Iro's feelings about season 2. But How about you, Jel and Marlon? Your kind of overall thoughts on season 2? The developments that have occurred, the things that have changed, the status quos that have been irreparably destroyed.
Man, yeah. If I were to just give my overall impressions, I think season 2 felt like they very much expanded the scale and size of everything going on. Like, we have more characters, more locations, just feels like more stuff is just going on. And I feel like I get a much better sense of just how like big everything is. Like, one moment that stands out to me was when Jan gets when Jan got recalled to Heinesen and he has to like go back to Iserlohn.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's gonna take him 4 weeks just to get back there. Yep. I'm like, even with like all the technology and everything they have, like, it's still going to take him a month to get it back. And it kind of gave me this like a sense of scale to the show. I feel like is even bigger than it was. Space is big, y'all. But yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily a good or a bad thing, because I do feel like maybe season 2 didn't have as much like some of like the personal stories, than kind of like the weird kind of one-off odd like side story things we got in season 1. I feel like maybe that wasn't as, they just didn't have time for that as much in season 2. But
what a fucking show that you can say with 110 episodes. Well, I think we just had to get through this quickly because we didn't have enough time for that.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know what you would cut for any of that. So it's not like I'm complaining. I'm just saying it was a little bit different, a little bit of different feel in season 2, where it was like we almost had to stay more focused on the main plot because there's so much happening.
I mean, I think there's just something about like the wider scope is allowed and it's not overwhelming because, again, I think we said it back in season 1, they do such a good job of kind of onboarding you into like who are the characters, who are the movers and shakers. Like obviously at this point in season 2, are there still like half a dozen admirals on Reinhard's side I could not identify by face alone, of course, but like also at the same time, it's like we have become so well acquainted with the fabric of the setting as a whole that like it is no longer nearly as intimidating when they introduce a bunch of new characters.
I'll say though, like, at the end of season 1, I was like, okay, like, we've gotten through a decent amount of episodes. This probably has established most of the main players. And then like the second season OP comes on and there's all these new galactic admirals. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right? The Stalin guy with the weird black mustache, like, what's going on?
Like, and was Mueller even in season 1?
I don't think so.
Like, I don't think so. But you think, right? Like, think about that, right? Think about the status quo of season 1 versus season 2. Like a character like Mueller, who, if he did exist in season 1, we barely even registered him. And fucking here he is, Mr. fucking Big Dick, savior of the Battle of Vermilion, coming in, swooping
Iron
in
Shield
to save Reinhard's
right?
sorry ass.
Same with Merkatz even.
Yeah. Like, remember, Merkatz was in episode 1.
I totally forgot
about
that.
He was one of those 5 dudes who walks in to tell off Reinhard.
Yeah, he is one of the admirals in episode 1 who's like, oh, I wonder about this Von Musel guy. They call him the Petticoat Admiral. I think he's like one of the more like open-minded ones, but he's still one of those dudes. And fucking look at him now, fucking running his goddamn guerrilla warfare operation out here in deep space. Fucking, it's wild.
The big thing is though, like, in this season, I was hoping the Federation would get a little something, just like to get to savor a little moment of victory. Even their victory at Iserlohn against Geiersberg Fortress is tainted by Yang getting crapped on.
Their garbage politics.
And honestly, it's still really a Pyrrhic victory because all these people died. Like he basically is forced to murder an entire starship. It's brutal.
I mean, yeah, I totally agree with you, Marlon. I think, there is that part of me who, of course, like generally believes in the ideals of a liberal democracy that wants to see the FPA show those aspects a little better. I think that is why we all lamented the death of Jessica Edwards, because her character kind of represented like the good aspects of democracy. Like, she was a personification of why democracy is worth defending. And without a viewpoint character like her, who's like kind of on the ground floor of a democracy, of what it can be and why it should exist, I definitely understand why there are people out there who say, man, fuck liberal democracy. Clearly, autocracy is the way to go. I think these people are full of shit, but like, the way it is presented in show, like if you were to just take Legend of the Galactic Heroes at face value with none of the I think more nuance
none of the nuance
analysis required. Yeah, of course you would walk away from this show thinking, man, liberal democracy has nothing to offer us.
I mean, it's that famous Churchill quote, right? That democracy is the worst system except for all the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of, in many ways, I think Jan kind of embodies that idea of I mean, we'll get into this later, of course, when we're talking about more of him as a character, but the idea that, hey, at the end of the day, a democracy is good because even if we vote for our own self-destruction, at least we chose it for ourselves. But with all that said, I don't know. How about we open it up a little bit? Is there any kind of standout moments for you guys? Kind of like your moment in season 2 where you were like, wow, this show just keeps on doing what it does,
I think the episode where Julian watches the history of mankind is
that was that was a really cool episode.
Yeah, maybe one of the best background exposition episodes I've ever watched. Just
it really just
both in universe and out of universe. Sorry, Marlon, go ahead.
It shows how much care this writer takes to building his world, how much he's thought about the structure of it, that he has this really fleshed out backstory to, I think I remember you telling me at one point that he originally wrote Yang and Reinhard as kind of side characters or like background characters in another story he created, and so he's had this huge idea of this world, and we get to see just how much he's molded it in that episode. It's really cool. Yep.
Totally. Yeah. It's kind of almost it kind of almost reminds you of the origins of the original Lord of the Rings, right? Where Tolkien kind of wrote Lord of the Rings as basically a vehicle for the hundreds or thousands of pages of lore he wrote up for his fictional setting.
I think both of those show an understanding of history versus just just creating a world isn't really the same thing as creating history for that world, and how everything feeds into everything else over and over and over.
Right. No, totally. I don't know. What about the rest of you guys? Marlon, Jell, what is you have any standout moments from this season? Anything that really sticks out?
Well, I mean, if we're talking, I guess if the question was favorite moment or favorite episode, I don't know if they would necessarily be the same thing for me, but
okay, go for either then, whichever you think is the better answer.
Probably the easy one would be the Battle of Rantamario, that episode.
Oh, is that the one with Bukov kind of just holding out against?
Which was just cool. I felt like that episode was just one of those non-stop edge of your seat.
The kind of episode you forget to breathe because
every second it's just completely you can't look away from the screen type of episodes. And just kind of seeing, if you want the good space battle stuff, that's that's peak peak content for the series.
Totally.
Just as far as if you want to pick one episode,
I think that episode definitely does
stand out one.
Yes. Sorry to interrupt you there. I was going to say I think that episode does a great job of kind of portraying kind of the more nuanced details of battles. It's obviously we talk about this in the podcast because Iro just always indulges my tangents about military tactics. But the idea is that generally military leaders aren't stupid. They know they're walking into a trap. They know they're walking into a desperate situation. And it's not oh, you tricked me. It's more fuck, man. Everything leading up to now, our economics, our politics, our society, everything,
and
contributed to
microcosm. It's that specific moment where Bittenfield charges into the space current, and all Alliance ships lock onto the spot where they'll emerge, and they emerge, and the Alliance fires, and it's just not enough.
It's still not enough. Yeah,
they did everything right, but just couldn't.
Right. And And I think speaking to that theme, for me, that's why I really like the early parts of the Battle of
Yeah,
Gettysburg,
I was going to say
where
that.
Yang is not there, and yeah, it's the crew kind of being like, "Oh shit, what do we do?"
Yeah, similar.
Yeah,
Yeah, similar.
my
here.
favorite thing
setup.
about the fortress battle is just like how it's such a it's such a novel idea, because there's literally nothing in contemporary military tactics to compare with this idea of two giant spaceships battling each other, and like the idea of like the tidal forces affecting the battle and all these cool ways that he plays with these sci-fi concepts. It's just enough that you believe what's going on, and it makes just this cool
Yeah,
story
totally.
to Shenkop riding on the metal sea, just axing dudes.
That sequence was so good.
That was my favorite moment for
Oh
sure.
man. Yeah, yeah. I love Gettysburg because it is this really neat back and forth. Again, we say this we said this during the podcast for that episode, but like a lot of times in anime, especially, they kind of portray battles as like you know these kind of very static things, right? Where it's like I have my strategy, you have your
Mhm.
strategy, and we're just going to clash until one wins out. Whereas Gettysburg is like, oh crap, they saw through that. Okay, what do we do next? Okay, what if we use the gravitational pull of Iserlohn to curve the Thor hammer around its like around the side to hit its blind spot? It's all these like really wild, yeah, as you said, Marlon, like science fiction, like good ass classic science
Mhm.
fiction concepts just coming into play. Um, in terms of some other moments, I want to just shout out. Maybe the littler moments is I really love Julian capturing the Imperial
Oh
Destroyer.
yeah, that was really
I
fun.
think that's like
Yeah.
just watching Julian come into his own.
The whole sequence where he leaves Iserlohn for the first time.
Oh my god, yes, that is fantastic.
Hero, take this on your quest. It may,
His RPG,
yeah, it may
RPG
may
town.
save you one day.
Yeah. Speaking of all that,
Yeah, everybody just
like,
giving.
favorite character
Yeah,
I
go ahead,
think would
Marlon.
be of this season at least is Louis Mashengo. Like, he's been doing so much stuff in the background, especially to save Julian's
Yeah.
hind. Like, and even
Yeah, Mashenko's just in the
hanging
background.
out.
He's doing
Yeah.
work.
or when he was on
Why is that
Heinesen,
guy
like
over
beating
here?
up those goons. Oh, that was so good.
Yeah. I mean, they say about Louis Mashenko, he's a good officer, but you get him mad and he's worth 10
Mhm.
men.
Uh,
I do kind of love the. Again, this is just because of the subs that kind of you can definitely misconstrue it as Yang being accidentally racist, but him constantly pointing at Mashenko and being like, "Who is that? What is he doing here?"
Yeah, it's a little
It's like
different
it's like,
this
dog,
running gag.
It's like, dog, you commanded him to follow Julian, and then you never gave him orders afterward.
the loyal man.
But yes, and then Gel, I'm surprised Gel or Marla, I'm surprised as the romance people, romantic comedy people. You guys did not mention Yang's confession
Well,
to
Ooh.
Frederica.
yeah, it was
That was
like
painful.
The
That
most
was painful to
awkward
watch.
love confession in the history
so
of
like
fiction.
we've been watching Kaguya-sama this season, and this last episode there was this part where like the main character, there was this really dramatic scene and he said all these lines which in retrospect are super embarrassing, and like he just is in agony of his own embarrassment afterwards, and that was me vicariously through Yang Wen Lee. Just like,
I do love that in ways, like as I was telling Iro, I think actually they truly were meant for each other. Like Frederica keeps it on the level so often, but you realize that in a lot of ways she is maybe just as awkward as Yang is. Like when her first response to Yang's proposal is, "Well, if we pool our pensions together, we should be able to afford a nice house, upon retirement." And it's like fucking. All right.
Right. I mean, that's like that's a weird response, but it's also the perfect response for that situation.
Yes. Yeah.
Like for any other situation, I'd be like, okay, but but for that situation,
I will
it works.
say I do.
Okay,
I
and
do
I think.
feel
Yeah, go ahead.
like Iro got one on me because I actually didn't see like all the interactions between Julian and Frederica. That like that he had a thing for her. Like I was thinking so much of the space opera. I guess I completely missed that.
I thought you guys mentioned that at some point,
No,
but I guess maybe you didn't, because
I think Iro
I
might have.
definitely
We've done a lot of podcasts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to remember it all. I mean, speaking to that, Iro, I was working on the first part of this podcast, and I realized that, Iro, you're a great adjutant because you are always there to support me, and you never, you make the executive choices when necessary, but you never call me out even when sometimes I deserve it. So I'm going to be magnanimous here and give you permission to lord over me that once again with season 2, you have correctly called almost every single thing that happened.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
Near the end of season 2.
Yeah, full disclosure, I had seen 53 and 54 before I listened to you guys.
Oh man, I probably sound like such a fool
on the
Yeah,
last
me too.
episode, and it was pretty entertaining listening to G's predictions on what was going to happen.
So
Right.
convinced.
Dude, what?
Yeah.
He proposed to Frederica.
yeah.
Come on.
No, I get it. There's some, it's not like you were just, wildly speculating. There was
threw his
certainly some
plot armor
logical.
out
Yeah, you're not
window.
wrong.
There certainly were some logical threads there, but yeah,
He
it was fun.
He put his plot armor in the airlock and jettisoned it away
And
like
then
trash.
in the next episode, he's in a cardigan, just on a couch with his wife. And all is right. Well, not everything is not all right in the world, but still.
House shopping.
But that's kind of what I mean, Iro, is that you even correctly called that Yang survives at the cost of the
Yeah.
FPA. And kind of speaks to that kind of like, but that's the thing, right? Like,
Felt like that was
kind
the
of
logical next step in how the show can escalate.
right. And I guess I had assumed that, and I think that's the amazing thing about this show, right? Every season, I think every season, I think at this point we are used to them changing the status quo on us, but I think there are certain things about that status quo maybe some of us took for granted as, no matter what happens, these fundamental elements will always be there. I assumed the existence of the FPA was one of them.
I thought.
I assumed no matter how badly the FPA fucked up, they would not.
I think this show's so character focused at times that Yang Wen Lee being there to oppose Reinhard is more important than the FPA being there to oppose Reinhard.
I could swear there was like.
And I think.
Yeah, sorry. I
ahead,
just
Ron,
could
sorry.
swear there was like an end of episode sequence, like 6 or 10 episodes before the finale, where it's like, and once the Empire reconquered this or something like that, they changed the name to this or something like. So I thought that they actually foreshadowed that the Empire would take control at one point. Maybe I'm totally misremembering.
I think in one of like the episode previews, or at least one, at some point, the narrator's like, it basically says this would be the last thing the FPA ever does, or something like that. where they're
don't
pretty.
ever watch the
we don't
previews.
watch the next episode previews.
Dude,
Okay, well, that's probably smart then. But
just out of curiosity, I watched the preview for like episode 51, or for at the end of 51 for 52, and it literally says, and then Mueller shows up at the last second to save Reinhard. And I'm like, motherfucker, you can't just say that in the preview. What are you?
That's pretty bad.
What are you doing?
I don't like always watch them, but I could have sworn at some point on one of them you said that. But I mean, that aside, like, and this might be getting into our next topic, but I will say the FPA technically
It's like a
still
vassal
exists.
state, basically.
They made a important point that Reinhardt chose not to officially annex the FPA yet. And basically, the plan is to, bleed them out financially or whatever first,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
basically
eventually
like saying
take
the
it
Vichy
over.
Republic of France still existed once Hitler took it over.
Yeah. So there's that, and we of course still have Merkatz and his band of freedom fighters out there somewhere.
Like
so
60 fucking ships.
Yeah. So like I guess so long as the ideals and the spirit of the FPA lives on, then I would certainly not have put it past the show to just completely destroy the current infrastructure that we know of. We know of. So,
but I think you have a good point, Jell, that like at the end of the day, it is more the principle and it is more Yang that matter in terms of the central conflict of democracy versus autocracy. And kind of jump from there. Now it's time for our baseless speculation corner. Where do things go from here? What is the fate of Yang Wen Li and Reinhard von Lohengram? What is the Earth Cult's plan?
Yeah, that Earth
what is what do we all think is happening in season 3? What do we feel like is going to be some major aspects of it?
They've been,
I think,
hinting pretty heavily just how much that invalid cousin of
Baron
yeah,
Kunmo,
how he's gonna
number one
still
Mecklinger
don't get
fan.
how he's gonna be relevant. Like, do you think he has some kind of noble tie? Like, because the only thing I could think him doing is like disrupting his political order. Because like, what can he do from his bedside that would really hurt Reinhard otherwise?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned that actually in the prior part of this very podcast. Actually, and I think that's always the fascinating thing, right? Is like we are just naturally predisposed to think, well, not that we have anything against somebody who is bedridden, but he doesn't have material
Right.
power. He doesn't have seemingly doesn't have economic power. He doesn't seem to have cultural influence. So like,
But I think cultural
where does his
influence.
harder stuff power?
I think
Go ahead.
cultural influence is the only vector possible for him.
Yeah, but how does the Earth Cult's teaching spread to the Empire? Like, I think Reinhard, maybe we can get into this in our, Yang versus Reinhard discussion later, but I feel like, for better or worse, Reinhard has so solidly established his rule in the Empire that, in general, they kind of get into this in the documentary episode, but it's like people tend to turn to these kind of extremist dogmatic religions in times of desperation when the physical and material institutions of law and order have failed them. But with Reinhard running things, like as far as like the Empire is concerned, Reinhard is your god.
There's one.
There is no need.
There's
for
one
Earth
group
Cults.
that's not in his pocket, and that's I forget what the PC name that was given for it, but the new secret police. So I could see, if they're the ones kind of controlling law and order in the city, maybe that's how things spread. That like the chief of police gets corrupted.
Another thing that they made sure to highlight is Job Trunicht was able to keep all his assets and get shipped out to the Empire.
Yeah, somehow that fucking swine rat is still.
So because Reinhardt was being a brat and didn't want to talk to him, he's probably going to pop up again like a cockroach at some point. And he's in the Empire now.
Yeah,
so
I even sorry, go ahead.
I think season 3 will have a lot more focus on internal Empire politics.
I think so,
and how the Earth Cult starts influencing it to get themselves on top.
Yeah, I mean, I think my suspicion has always been, I think I've said this many times on record, is that, and I think Reinhard himself has admitted it, he is a warmonger. He does not do well in peacetime, and I'm kind of very curious where season 3 goes, where he has now quote unquote won the universe. What does a Reinhard and his cabinet of admirals look like when there is no external enemy to defeat?
Yeah, I don't know if he can handle running a country in peacetime.
Right, and like now with people like fucking now with people like Oberstein and fucking Lang, kind of in the background. I remember Lang only showed up for one episode, but I refuse to believe that dude is a one-off. That guy is gonna come back and do some real slimy shit. I just know it. So,
I mean, we already saw Reinhardt sitting impatiently, shuffling papers about, and having no patience for the setting up the government stuff or whatever.
Yeah,
just and that's like 24 hours into it. So I mean,
I think that's the thing, right? I think Reinhard, as for all of his persona as the Golden Emperor, the chosen god king of the Empire, I think we're going to start. I mean, I think we, the viewer, already know of his myriad of flaws, but I think his
subject.
You mean like the subjects that kind of operate outside of his oversight, or like?
I mean, everyone else will start to see his flaws.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, his subjects will start to see his flaws. I mean, I think people like Oberstein and Hilda definitely already know.
Oh yeah, of course.
But yes, I mean, I think people will start to recognize that, or more. I think here's the thing, because we have, God, there's so many things we could speculate about. But we have the. Here's the thing, right? Like, everybody's forgotten. Royenthal has the money in the bank suitcase. He can cash that in at any time to challenge the heavyweight champion at WrestleMania. Royenthal's ready to go. He's just biding his time. I mean, he literally has an internal monologue in the last couple of episodes where he's like, I could take this opportunity to really fuck some shit up, but
I like this.
I have to wonder. So obviously that's going to be a thing at some point,
right.
But I have to wonder if that's going to happen next, or if that's going to be something they save for later down the line.
I'm honestly not sure.
I could see it going either way. But, like, for example, he was ready to make a move now, but when Hilda and Mittermeier made their move to go attack Heinesen, that kind of he decided to back off. So I think he's shown he's willing to play the long game and be patient.
Totally.
And I'm wondering, like, right now is not a good time
personally
to make a move. No. So, like, I'm wondering if that's not going to come into play until, like, the end of season 3 or even later. I don't know if we're going to see anything on that front immediately. I think Iro hit it earlier when he said we're going to see a lot of politics, at least in the front end of the season, because right now there's no reason for a lot of conflict. Maybe they'll throw in some Mercats here and there just to give us an action episode.
I think the death flag that you guys might be right on from last episode is Mittermeier. I think the one thing that might make Royenthal act is if Mittermeier dies, because Mittermeier is kind of like his morality pet.
There's the only wall between Royenthal acting,
like we saw it in that last episode.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree. I think that if something were to, if Mittermeier were to get got in the same way that Kirkiais got, like, I think that could be the catalyst for Royenthal in the same way it was for Reinhard, where it's just like, fuck it, the kid gloves are off. I'm doing it now. Like.
I mean, Mittermeier is kind of in a similar position that Kirkiais was, where eventually I think his, obviously I don't think
morality and ethics are going.
Yeah, which I don't think was on the same level as Kirkiais, but he's kind of in a similar direction where he's generally a good man.
I think the key difference. I think the key difference. Sorry to interrupt you there. Is that Mittermeier? I feel like the vibe I get from Mittermeier is that he's still a company man through and through. Like, he's still deeply loyal to Reinhard. And I feel like Reinhard would have to, like, fucking, pull a fucking Princess Yuffie and, like, start shooting civilians in the streets to, like, convince Mittermeier that, like, his, Reinhard was in the wrong. But I think for better or worse, unlike Kirkiais, because, like, remember when Reinhard lets I forget the name of the planet, when he lets that planet get nuked, like. Right. Kirkiais is immediately like, why did you do that, Reinhard? You fucked up. Like, and I need to call you out on it. And Mittermeier did not. And not that Mittermeier was in that position to do so, but I'm saying that I think Mittermeier has a lot more leeway, a lot more moral leeway, or at least he can justify it for himself.
Or, like, if we're talking, like, next guy in line on the
he also seems much more naive than Kirkiais was in a certain way. Like you said, like, he's very loyal, and that loyalty kind of blinds him to what Reinhard has done.
That is a good point. And I think, I mean, kind of related to that, I guess it's like, I guess personally, I was surprised that more of Reinhardt's admirals survived this season than I thought they would. Like, they introduced so many of them. I thought they introduced so many of them specifically so that some of them could be throwaways. Turns out Kemp was the only throwaway admiral.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we really didn't get, like, too many big name deaths by the end of season 2, right? Like,
no,
it was like the biggest one.
R.I.P. Konev.
Yeah, maybe just Boris Konev. Or is it Ivan Konev?
Ivan Konev, yeah.
I always mix them up. But, yeah, it's kind of interesting in that way. It's like they decided that their big status quo changer would be the death of the FPA rather than any individual character. But related to that, look, I'm only saying this because I think at this point I need to accept it. Like, I have to emotionally prepare for this. And I think you guys might agree with me. I don't see any way for Yang Wen-li to survive this.
Nah, I don't see it either.
The series, no.
Someone morally good and self-sacrificing as him, it's like what Rubinsky said early on. We're gonna keep tightening the thread, and I think eventually Yang is gonna run out of room, and the only option left will be to sacrifice himself, and I think he will do it because that is who he is.
Yeah.
And I dread the day that is coming.
I think if it's happening, it's going to be at the end of the season. End of season 3.
Yeah.
Season 3. You think season 3 is going to be it, and then the last season is going to have to be like Julian, Luke Skywalker, Minchie.
That's what I think.
Fucking
Speaking of Julian, I think his star is going to rise over next season because, they were talking about when he was on Heinesen, just how popular he was. Like, he was this war hero, and I imagine there's going to be some kind of time skip going on, if at least a small one. So maybe that'll start to, he'll get more involved in Heinesen and be able to take control.
I do want to know what's up with Julian's fascination with Earth and the Earth cult.
He talked to Bishop Degsby.
On the ship. He wants to go to Earth.
Who knows what Bishop Degsby told him?
I'm not implying, I'm not going to go total wild speculation and think Julian's going to get swept up in the Earth cult or something. It was interesting that
I think he's too good of a kid for that. But I think
it is interesting that he's had that level of interest in it.
Right.
And I kind of want to see where that goes.
Anyone's in a position to stop the Earth cult's nefarious scheme. It's Julian.
And Louis Mashengo.
Julian and Louis Mashengo, fucking buddy cop adventures on Earth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's. I think look, as always with this show, there are so many interesting vectors this could go. There's so many interesting plot threads that are hanging in the air, and that unlike a lot of shows, it kind of feels good to know this show is going to address all of them eventually.
Right.
The show knows that hey, we don't leave plot threads around carelessly. This is not a trivial matter. When we hint at something down the line, we are going to address it of some time down the line. I think one I want to mention that I wonder if it'll come into play in season 3 is we still don't know what Yang left for the Empire back at Iserlohn.
Right.
And now that Merkatz is out there with his fleet, I almost wonder if those two things have something to do with each other. Do you think that maybe that's part of Yang's plan to eventually retake the FPA?
Yeah.
Is
absolutely
recapture Iserlohn with whatever secret Trump.
He would have to coordinate with some kind of rebellion in Phezzan as well to reestablish the closed border between the FPA territory and the Empire territory.
I think, another thing I think might happen next season is a lot more conflict with Phezzan because their position in the status quo is now redundant.
Yes, they even explicitly state that, right?
Yeah.
Phezzan is basically no longer needed. And I think, again, I don't like the guy, but I think Rubinsky is not out of play yet. That card is still on the board. Rubinsky pulled a job Truniht, just bailed when things got bad, and he's going to come back when the time is right to play the hero.
And that's why I think the Earth cult's plan or whatever has to be cultural, economic on some level, rather than we've got a Death Star or something. Because
what if they do have a Death Star?
They might, but I'm saying they've spent so much effort building up an economic power and a cultural power.
You see how big their flat screen TVs are, right?
Yeah, no, they're living large down on Earth.
And so I don't know what they could do to upend everything for their own gains, but I think it has to be cultural in some way.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think if they just suddenly revealed, actually, we have a 100,000 strong fleet that we just hit on Earth this whole time, that seems a bit contrived. I think it has to be something more for better or worse, I think it has to kind of tie into a kind
history.
It kind of has to tie into kind of a weird pseudo Illuminati-esque conspiracy where
totally.
Actually there are Earth cult members in the highest levels of Empire government in secret or something.
Admiral Mecklinger was
Earth cult all along. What if some of the admirals really are Earth cult?
Just fucking oh man, fucking Earth cult sleeper agents just fucking waiting to be activated.
Oh man,
Shiki Tanaka's the division.
I don't know. So if we're talking who lives or dies, then I think Yang by end of season 3 is a reasonable guess. I also still would not be surprised at this point. I would not be surprised if he made it till pretty close to the end.
I just don't know if he makes it that far. I really don't.
Just because he's, maybe we'll get to this later. They've tied him so much to the like one half of the democracy versus autocracy debate.
But that's the thing. But like again, that's what I said before. Like there are certain status quos we take for granted that we think will never change. Like no matter how many things change, Reinhard and Yang will always be here. And I think Yoshiyuki Tanaka is fucking smarter than that. He's like, oh, you thought that status quo was protected. Well,
I mean, like we've been saying for a long time, we have Julian on the bench. So I mean, it's
there certainly is an option. There's certainly an option for a viewpoint character on the FPA side. Should it come to it?
I guess my thinking is just thematically, if Yang or Reinhardt fail, it would be throwing things out of balance, and I don't think the series is going to try to make that kind of statement one way or the other. So either if Yang does go, it has to be Julian or somebody or some way that that side of the theme, the democracy side is held up on equal footing.
Hear this out for my speculation then. All right. So just like another show in which the highly charismatic character dies halfway through, what if Yang is mortally wounded on the Hyperion, but he pulls off the Hyperion Giga Drill Breaker and mortally and takes out, like, I don't know, Mittermeier or some shit, right? And then fucking it's up to Julian to pick up the pieces, and give the speech about how Yang is no longer here, but he lives on my back and in my heart.
Like Shenkop is the Keaton in this analogy.
Yes, exactly. Like I'm not Yang Wen Li, but I'm Julian the Digger, and I'll always move forward.
Speaking of Shenkop, though, I could see him biting it.
Oh, Shenkop doesn't stand a chance.
I honestly think, so I think there's a 10% chance everyone is dead by the end of the series. I bet everyone's dead by the end of the series, because I bet the end of the series does what the series has always done. It just fucking jumps 100 years in the future, and it's like, barring that was history. Barring time skip in present day, I'm going to say there's like a 10% chance everyone's dead by the last episode. There's like a 20% chance everybody but Julian is dead, and there's like a 30% chance everybody but Julian and Reinhardt is dead.
I'm going to take that last one. I think I'm going to take that last odds that Julian and Reinhardt, I think, will survive. Or will broadly survive, barring any last minute time.
Some of the small people are going to survive.
I think everybody else.
Kezern is going to survive.
I've said before, if Reinhardt does,
yeah, I was just saying,
sorry, Marlon. Like, what was that?
It almost seems like people like Kezern have kind of been shipped off the story. Like he's been put on administrative duty. I don't think he's coming back into the fight. I think there's some people who are.
And you think that as a result that protects him, because he's not a major enough character anymore.
He's not important enough to kill off now.
And, I mean, I don't know. He's got a family. That's like minus plot armor. Y'all saw what family did to Kemp.
Yeah, that's true.
Y'all saw what happened to Kemp.
What did to Yang Wen Li?
Yeah.
Okay, so
this
I'm going to say,
by the way, for
that
those
rule
who
only
have been following
applies. Yeah, it's Kazerne in the
look. Yes. Look, Kazerne, fucking it. Y'all know who we're talking about.
I'm gonna say the family flag only works if there's only like one or two characters with families. I feel like there's enough characters in this show that have families where that doesn't necessarily apply as much. With Kemp, they laid it on so thick, like that, like there was no way that was going to become a factor.
For better or worse, Kemp was asking for it the moment he said, haha, maybe we'll call this the Kemp Mueller corner after we win this battle.
So that was like, that was a slam dunk. But so I think, and I do wonder if Calzone was even going to be relevant much more in the show at this point. But
I think he still has a role to play.
Is he going to be relevant enough or close enough to the front lines even to where he's
I mean,
there. He's going to be somebody to kill off.
I think if we broadly weigh characters like that on the periphery, then yes. I mean, I think there is a higher survival chance. But if I'm talking about like core cast, like on the FPA side, I mean, like, okay, I think it's literally just Julian and Frederica. I think those are the only two that like are going to survive. Like Yang, he's dead. Shenkop, totally dead. Bukok, most certainly going to die.
Take out a whole
I'm surprised Bukok's still with us, to be honest.
I said Louis Machenko's going to take out a whole starship with his fists.
Yeah, he's just gonna. He was like, "Put me in a spacesuit. I'm gonna take him." Like Poplin.
Oh yeah,
definitely
for
dead.
sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Poplin's gonna go on like some kind of like suicidal crusade over to as his form of grieving for Konev.
He went with he went with Merkatz. Yeah.
Him and the other Rosenritter guy.
Yeah,
with
the not named
guy
one, or the one that was named,
guy whose name we could never remember, even in the "Can you name everyone?" season 1 game.
Yeah, that was never gonna happen. Dude, that dude doesn't have enough screen time. Like, Shenkop is basically your stand-in for anything Rosenritter or ground warfare related. So.
It's true.
But
on the Empire side, I think we're all agree Ruenthal and Mittermeier are gone.
Oh, they're going to eat it. Like, I think Roenthal is actually going to last pretty long. I think because they're setting up Roenthal as like the dude who might be the one who jumps in to like go for the throat when the time is right. I could see Roenthal being, because as you said, if Roenthal bides his time through season 3, I could actually see Roenthal being the last minute like quote unquote final boss for Reinhard.
No, I was totally going to say that because. I think I said last time if Reinhardt dies, it's going to be like in the last episode. I think there's no way he dies before that.
Yeah,
if he does
agreed.
At all.
I agree.
And I could totally see the like Ruenthal biding his time and him kind of pulling the trigger like at the very end, and they kind of end on and the cycle continues type of.
I think it'll happen even before that. Like I'm more saying that like I think as a final conflict in a world where, like, a theoretical world where Reinhard has won everything. He has beaten the FPA. Yang Wenli is dead. Like, everything has been, maybe Julian and the FPA resistance still exist, but otherwise, like, he has dominated the galaxy. I could totally see them being like, well, now Roenthal's here, and y'all slept on him because he wasn't Reinhard, and he wasn't as charismatic as Reinhard, but actually he has been slowly building himself up this entire time.
I think it'd be kind of hilarious if Bittenfield
it's not going to be like
alive, considering how suicidally he keeps charging into every fight.
You know what? As much as I think we love to clown on Bittenfield, I almost kind of hope, like, in some weird, bizarre, like turn of events, Bittenfield is actually the longest surviving of Reinhardt's admirals. Just like
it seems pretty. Seems pretty tough to kill. I mean,
like he's just so fucking hot-blooded and boneheaded that he is actually too dumb to kill.
What are the?
Well, here's the other question. Like, I mean, do any of Reinhardt's other admirals even matter at this point? There's so many of them. Like,
I think some of them. I think some of them have the role. I think. And you want to get all like meta narrative here. I think many of Reinhardt's admirals still have not really carried out their quote unquote narrative role, if that makes sense, right? Like a guy like Kemp, his role was to basically eat shit at Geiersburg. So once he finished that role, he was kind of taken off stage. Whereas a character like Mueller, on the other hand, I think survives that battle specifically because he still has something left to give to the story, and I think. A lot of those admirals, like Mecklinger or what's the name of the Reed Richards one? Kessler. Like those guys have not really played their part in the story yet. Like they have shown up from time to time. Guys like that, guys like Fahrenheit. Like these are dudes who, hell, even Bittenfield. Like they have roles to play narratively beyond just winning fights.
I mean, Bittenfield got a pretty big, big moment there.
He did. But I guess I meant like in terms of like his effect on Reinhard specifically,
right?
Because for better or worse, what these admirals contribute to the plot is how does this affect Reinhard?
Yeah,
and I think that a lot of those
does it mean a matter of like who decides to team up with Ruenthal and who decides to stay loyal to Reinhardt type of thing?
Yeah, I think it could totally be some kind of fucking Marvel Civil War shit where like some admirals side with Ruenthal and some stick with Reinhardt, and maybe
The
that's
Iron
how it's more.
Shield, the Iron Shield versus the Black Lance.
Oh man. Oh, that'd be really
now
good.
I want to see that.
I'll save that for our spin-off topic. So,
oh
but,
man, yeah.
but I think we've done enough speculation for now. I think we could speculate for hours, frankly, about what's going to happen.
Speculation because
Oh,
I need
yes,
I need
please
to
do.
mention this character.
Yes.
I need when everything. I need at the darkest moment when it seems like the Earth cult's gonna take over everything. Bogdashi walks out of the shadows.
Oh my god, I forgot about Bogdashu.
Figured it all out and knows exactly what to do.
What is he doing right now?
Right. They sent Bogdashu as a spy. He's spying on the Earth cult, right? I completely
Bogdashi
forgot.
wanted you to forget him.
Right. Oh my god. Like I still remember Lang, but Bogdashu, I almost.
He actually is the greatest spy of all time.
He is the greatest spy of all time. Like I think he just had an off day when he was trying to trick Yang. Like
His heart wasn't in it.
Yeah, like he had a bad hangover. Like he slipped in the bathroom. Like he just was not on his A game that day. Like that's why he was like, "Oh yeah, I totally ran away, Yang Wen-Li. Can we meet privately?" Like he was not operating at Bogdachi that day. But I think everybody tends to agree that when you pick Bogdashu in the fighter select screen, pros tend to generally agree he is kind of a C tier character, viable in certain situations, but overall not reliable. I think most people agree that if you let his health sink below like a third HP and he transforms into into top tier spy Bogdashu, that he actually has a lot of attacks.
Thumbs up super is the most powerful in the game.
Oh yes, it's an extremely powerful punish. It has so many punish frames that
the only taunt in the game that does damage.
Him and Julian working together.
Exactly. Fucking
Bogdashi. That's a buddy cop movie I want to see.
Yeah,
he's bad by himself, but if you pick him as a support for Julian, he's the top tier.
Oh, super good. Yeah, I mean, I heard a Bogdashi player actually won a SoCal regional one year, so really not to be
wasn't that
slept
Hook
on.
God?
we can't get into referencing actual fighting game players.
We're really squeezing all the juice out of this one. Yeah,
all right. Let's move on. We're burning good caps on that topic. So, but yes, thank you, Iro, for reminding us that the fucking Bogdashu card is still in play. Like he has been
at the start of the match. You forgot about it.
Right. The Bogdashi card has been turned face down with 3 tokens on top, and we don't know what he's doing yet, but he's got plans. But so let's just move on to our next topic, which is kind of at the core of what the story is. It is Yang and Democracy versus Reinhard and Autocracy. This when they finally meet and they kind of finally have that discussion of kind of how these two characters they both represent the platonic ideals of the political systems they believe in, but I think as Iro has often mentioned,
the reason I wrote this down is because I felt as though an actual autocracy, Reinhard is way too nice to actually embody what an autocracy really looks like.
Yes. Go ahead.
Which is why the show puts a lot of effort into saying that he's one of a kind. That no other rulers would be as good as him in autocracy, because the show also wants to show that there are good things no matter what side, as long as we reach these specific things.
Right. I think the thing you often say, Iro, is that regardless of the political systems they believe in, both Yang and Reinhard do broadly agree that there are some things in this world that are objectively good, or Legend of the Galactic Heroes as a whole. Even if Legend of the Galactic Heroes, the show itself, portrays certain political systems and ideologies as entirely subjective, the thing Legend of the Galactic Heroes does objectively believe in are that there are some undeniable universal goods in the universe, right? Like welfare and citizens representation and stuff like that.
Right. And I think a actual autocracy would not dare to give would not have any form of democratic rule within it. unlike what
Right,
Reinhard set up. On the other hand, it would make sense to like co-opt democratic ideals to further the autocracy
And
on a certain
the big
level.
thing about autocracies is like even if you're just ruling a city, you're never just one guy making all the rules. You have to have people under you, and so even
Right.
an absolute monarchy back in the Middle Ages was only ever as good as the administrative structure it had. So like,
Right.
It's the like hierarchical pyramid.
Right, but I think Iro wants to more get into is that this idea that like Reinhard paints a very rosy picture for autocracy, and I don't even mean to say that autocracy or that autocratic elements, are entirely without merits. You know, there is certainly the philosophical conversation of like, you know, what is better, right? Like, people might be stupid and self-destructive, but do they inherently have the right, you know, to bring that upon themselves? Like, is that their intrinsic right as a human being? They're the freedom that they should be engendered, or autocracy, or the more benevolent, charitable version of autocracy, which is the idea that
You're taking the sharp knife away from the child.
Yeah.
Right.
that if a single man could prevent widespread harm and suffering, like if a single man has the power to prevent that, should it not be his moral imperative to take control for himself so he can prevent that harm? Right? I think that is kind of the core idea there.
Right.
But I think I kind of agree that
that comes from a deep-seated belief that some people are better than other people. I think.
Right, like autocracy inherently relies on the idea that some people are just meant to be better than others.
Some
And
like you just said, Ron, like some people have to be at the bottom to support those at top, and that is their yoke in life.
Just
you know?
like hierarchies are the way the world works. Like even in a democracy, there's always like you can't have just a direct democracy because that would just be chaos. You know, like the reason why all democracies that function in the world right now function is because they're not democracies; they're democratic republics, and there is a difference.
Well, the thing I will say to that, I mean, we won't get into all of that, but I think the thing to say to that is, yes, of course, power structures exist in democracies, but the ideal of democracy is always that push and pull, right? Like democratic and socialist elements should always exist in the political spectrum of a democracy, so as to prevent people, for example, like Job Truniht, from
co-opting the rules of democracy against the spirit of democracy. Or like when Lang says his shit about how democracy isn't really democracy because if 51 people believe the thing, then it forces the other 49 to believe it. Right.
Like I think the idea is that
rhetoric.
Yes. Like I think we can all agree that democracy isn't perfect, right? There are many critical flaws to it, and I think Legend of the Galactic Heroes does a very good job of examining what are those structural weaknesses, and how can, shall we say, often autocratic individuals exploit those weaknesses.
I think what Reinhard said was really interesting about like regime change, like how like one man can do a lot more, much more quickly than the democratic system. Because honestly, that's actually why the democratic system works really well in a lot of cases, is that it prevents things from happening too quickly. Because that's usually how
it prevents
people get hurt.
Changes.
You know, like you can.
But then I think the thing is like
Reinhard doesn't really care how many people he hurts on the way. I think.
Right. I think because here's the thing, but. I think at the end of the day, I think what we're trying to say here is like, or discuss is that
we're trying to say Reinhardt's version of autocracy is like the best version, but not going to be your average if you average them out across history.
Galactic, like having reached the halfway point of the show, I'm a little bit miffed how it's always been worst version of democracy versus best version of autocracy, you know?
Right.
I think I want to see some good democracy and not just in the history lesson of look how shitty Rudolph was.
Right. I think there's definitely something to be said for... I'm sorry, Jill, go ahead.
That's the thing, though. Like, can that level of change happen fast enough in the time frame of a TV show?
Right.
Without major time skips. Like the amount of damage done to the FPA is going to take a long time to fix. Like,
yes, but here's the thing. I think the argument Yang is trying to remind us, and I think in many ways this is actually intentional. I think Legend of the Galactic Heroes is intentionally trying to show us in the moment democracy at its worst and lowest point, because, and it's a hard pill to swallow, but it is the inherent
I think
flow.
I think it's a necessary narrative device. If the show wants to take the position, if the show as a whole wants to take the position that, allowing certain democratic ideals to be good, then, but also wants to have a democracy up against an autocracy, in the main story, then it kind of has to show democracy at a low point.
Sure, but I guess so. Yes, related to that thing, I guess I wanted to say is Yang constantly reminds us of the long game. Yang constantly reminds us, think about the historical precedents you set with your actions.
Right.
Think about how your actions might affect things long beyond your lifespan. How the actions you might do now might become the justifications for horrible acts in the future. And there's certainly an argument to be made about Yang's his kind of long game, mindset versus the needs of the people in the present.
Yeah.
It's great that you're really worried about people in the future, but what about us now? And I think, for better or worse, I think what Yang is trying to show us. I'm sorry, just let me finish this real quick. It's just that I think Legend of the Galactic Heroes is trying to show us democracy is bad now because it is trying to remind us that it is not always bad and it can get better. Whereas Autocracy, the moment Reinhard kicks the bucket,
it's only going to get worse.
It can only get worse. Unless Reinhard fucking clones himself or manages to raise a perfect heir to the throne or something. Which, speaking of, I mean, that's a whole nother speculation we get into. Is Reinhard going to sire an heir? He has to, right? Because of the nature of his government. But I guess
there's 0% chance he doesn't hook up with Hilda.
Of course, I mean that's happening.
I'm sad that one countess from the party episode has not shown up again.
Oh yeah, I miss her.
Right.
Yeah, she was cool. But the thing I want to say there is just as quickly as Reinhard can make all these fixes to the Empire, the moment he dies, all of that can be instantly undone because there's no precedent for permanence. In a theoretical democracy, when the president dies or fucking even 50 years pass, people cannot just immediately start disregarding the precedents that have been set before it. People have to change things properly. They have to and I think that Legend of the Galactic Heroes is trying to remind us yes, if you are the kind of person who's going to just kind of blindly take everything at face value, of course you're going to think autocracy is the way to go. Of course you're going to think democracy is this weakness-riddled, broken institution. But if you're the kind of person who looks at this and remembers, oh, right, democracy is a government that can inherently be fixed by its civilians. It is not left to the whims of whoever is sitting on the throne.
Ideally, anyway.
Ideally. Of course, this is all speaking ideally, that is why that government is worth fighting for. I mean, sorry, I just had to go on to that whole tangent, Gel. Please.
So pretty much all of that was in play in kind of the final battle there with Reinhard, because first of all, it was only happening because Yang knows if he kills Reinhard, the Empire is as it exists is dead. I mean, it'll still exist, but they're going to at least have to find somebody else, and nobody's going to be as good as Reinhard, right? So I mean, that's obviously a big glaring weakness that it's just gonna. There's nothing you can do about that. That's just going to be a glaring weakness to even the best autocracy. But also on the flip side, we kind of dug a little into that, short-term versus long-term thinking when, Yang gets the call to, back off, and everybody in his fleet doesn't want to back off except Yang.
Right. They're begging him to take the shot.
Because in the short term, makes a whole lot more sense to just, maybe that would have been better for the people in the next couple of years, in the or even in the
next
rest of
50
Yang's
years,
lifetime. Yeah.
Right. I think that is entirely worthy criticism.
Actually,
of Yang,
well, I actually really respected that because we were talking about institutions.
Yeah, but
no, it's a very respectable choice.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm not saying he made the wrong choice. I'm just saying it was not
admirable choice.
I'm not saying he's made a wrong choice. I'm just saying it was a lot harder of a choice than I think any other choice Yang had to make at that point, because we had everybody, and I really loved the the conversation that Shenkop and Julian have right after that, when Shenkop's kind of blowing off some steam because he wanted to go. Well, I mean, everybody wanted to just go ahead.
I mean, they wanted to save the FPA.
Right. And, they kind of get into, him and Julian ultimately come to the conclusion that Yang made the right choice, but there was...
But that it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to like that choice. Like they respect.
And they brought up, Shenkop brought up some interesting points of like, at what point
do you disobey orders for the greater good?
Have to like how do you define that? Of you obviously can't just blindly follow the government. At some point, you have to make your own personal choice.
But where is that line? Right?
Like,
where is that line?
About being a soldier that they talked about. I think it is important to think about, like that. So many democracies in the past fell apart because their armies refused to do what their governments told them to do, and that like if Yang opened that door, that's that just. Sometimes you can never go back. There's still countries today that are basically military juntas or are founded on them. And
you could fucking argue that the NSMC already broke that with their dumb precedent of taking over the government.
Yang
season
hasn't
1.
broke that precedent. That's the thing, and the people trust Yang still.
Right. Yeah. Here's the thing, right? Like it's tough, and I think in a lot of ways this decision actually. This is just, I think, ties into why, like, a little bit of our next kind of topic, which is, like, are Yang and Reinhard believable characters? But it's that Yang actually pitted his own principles against himself in that choice. Because if y'all remember back in Season 1, what is Yang's dream? Yang's dream is that hopefully he can establish a good stalemate between the Empire and the FPA, which will buy us like a peaceful Cold War situation for at least maybe 20, 30 years. And that's 20, 30 years of children being born without, the specter of war looming over them.
Right.
And so it's not that Yang is not opposed to short-term gains, but he is forced to weigh them against the weight of what his actions might bring to bear decades or even centuries from now. Like centuries from... Is Yang the most galaxy brain individual in the show? Like this is a dude who's thinking like, oh no, if I make this choice now, 200 years from now, maybe somebody will use my actions to justify their own military.
Miracle Yang disobeyed orders, so
right, and even Miracle Yang, the source of disease,
the trickster,
the trickster rat master Yang Wenli, like was willing to do such an act. Like it's tough.
I think what makes what I think is good that the show does balance out, because we've even heard like Julian say this in conversations, things like that. Like, well, if you're not paying attention to what's happening now, though, you might not be here. People might not be here in 200 years. Like,
right.
So there is a balance you have to make, and that's why it makes calls like that so difficult to make, because maybe he would have gotten, like you're saying, which I guess ultimately was the point there, is that maybe he would have gotten that 20 or 30 or 50 years of peace out of taking out Reinhard.
Shows the nuance of the show that neither choice is really presented as the correct choice. It is presented as a hard fucking decision, and it's not the show's position what Yang did is right. But we know that it's what Yang decided was right.
Yes, exactly. Fucking spoilers. This show's really good.
Man,
really fucking
we're gonna become those people once this is over. Like I guess we already are those people.
We're already
those people.
How many times did you say a certain 1980 in our last podcast episode already? Yeah.
I mean, there's a part of it almost like if we did podcast titles for our wrap-up podcast, I don't know, say the title of that podcast should be a certain legendary 1988 science fiction OVA. But I digress. Yeah, just the fact that like these are choices that we can talk about for so long, like their entire anime,
and historians never agreed on who won the battle for Rebellion.
Right. Like there are entire 26 episode anime that don't even have one narrative decision this truly like nuanced and subjective.
I don't know. Should we push the stop all war button or should we not?
That's a tough question. I don't know. I think that was my mom told me that I should push the button, so I guess I will. We can't
I was
get
gonna
into
say,
other
are you letting your wrap up
anime in this
podcast now bleed
podcast.
into this podcast? As far as the Mary Sue thing,
full disclosure, we were recording this podcast roughly 24 hours after our wrap-up podcast for the season, so we got this all on the mind right now.
Go listen to episode 34 of the GLORIO Chat for full explanation of that
as
one.
far as,
hey, I got to plug my podcast for once.
Hey, totally. I'm magnanimous. I'll let you have that.
So for the Mary Sue thing,
all right,
I was just going to say, I think they've given them enough flaws, like character foibles, that they're not perfect people, and I think I could realistically see someone. I mean, there's been generals in history that have been very powerful and still haven't, completely taken the reins away. Even the ones that aren't as perfect, like, MacArthur wanted to bomb Korea during the Korean War, but he still thankfully decided not to. This is the idea of,
I mean, I don't know, wanting to nuke China during the Korean War is something of a black mark on that career, for better or worse.
Right. What I'm saying is, that's not even the best general, but he was still able to, listen to orders.
Well, I think the thing that yes, I think that what the detractors often say, and I think us here on the chat, I think we here in this podcast generally agree that we like Yang, and even if we don't always love Reinhardt's actions, we like him a ton as a character. We think he's very interesting, But my understanding is that in certain corners of the fan base, there are people who definitely complain that Yang is a Mary Sue. It's unrealistic how he wins all of his fights. He always just has the magical solution. Or what about Reinhard? How come he just magically managed to fix up his empire in the span of a couple of years with zero setbacks or issues? And I've definitely seen people make these arguments that
I mean, at some point you do have to cut them some slack for this being a fictional,
of course.
fiction. I mean, as well thought out, even the most well thought out science fiction is still going to be science fiction, right?
Of course.
So I mean, putting that, I guess, aside, and maybe this was the point Marlon was trying to get to. As characters, they've been developed, in a more, they've been developed in a well-rounded way that you can believe their motivations. They still feel like people, even if some of the things that they do maybe are a bit exaggerated, some of the end results. But I don't know, they still feel like believable human beings to a
the difference between looking at the list of events and looking at the actual events themselves, right?
Totally. Right. If you describe Young's accomplishments in a vacuum, yes, he does kind of sound, kind of an exaggerated caricature of the genius tactician. But what I think, as you said, Jel, and I think, Iro, you've said this as well, what Legend of the Galactic Heroes does so well is because we understand these characters so well, because Legend of the Galactic Heroes lavishly takes the time to just
puts the work in,
flesh out these characters and make you understand their motivations and their beliefs, that when they carry out the actions they do, you believe them because you think there is no other action this character could have taken. As much as we said that Yang probably really debated that choice at the end of the Battle of Vermilion, I think the thing is that we also love that character specifically because of the choice he makes, because that is Yang Wenli. That is who he is. His character would have made no other choice.
We're not. We knew what his answer was going to be there. It wasn't a question from the audience's point of view.
Exactly, and I think even with Reinhard, his actions make sense. They make sense in terms of who he is as a person. Both the golden emperor he so desperately wants people to believe he is, and the kind of impetuous, bratty kid that he still is under the surface. Those elements come to play so that when he makes very smart choices, it makes sense because he is a very intelligent character. Let it be said, Reinhard is a very smart, very competent individual. But also when he makes weird, rash choices that maybe will not pay off well down the line, that also makes sense because that is who he is as a character.
There was just to that point, there was kind of an interesting moment. I might have been reading too much into this, but when they meet during their conversation, and I was surprised Reinhard actually opens up quite a bit to Yang about Kirky Ice and how they had promised to take the galaxy together, and it was his intention to
promise to be better than the nobles from before. Right.
Well, there was that, but he actually talks about how his plan was to die so that Kirky Ice could live once they've accomplished their thing, and it was interesting during that entire stretch. Yang does not say a single word. He doesn't respond to that or anything, and like his reaction, I took his reaction almost as like, oh, this guy is still kind of a kid.
I think.
But I mean, that might have been me kind of reading too much into that. But the idea that he was seeing maybe for the first time sort of the chink in Reinhardt's armor there, and that
I mean,
again, these are just very there's more to these characters than just their the ideals and
totally.
the big picture
like,
ideals,
like 21, 22, something like that.
I mean, I don't know if he's that young, but Reinhard is definitely pretty young.
He's like under 25 at this point, right?
Yes. Fucking owns the galaxy at 25. Man, fuck am I doing? But yeah, it's like actually that's kind of a good point, Joe. I initially did not see the scene that way, but now that you say that, I kind of see what you mean in terms of like. It's kind of interesting because, like,
Young's like a decade older than him.
Right. But I think it's not exactly that. Yeah. But I think it's like Yang is idealistic, but Yang is also very world weary. Like, Yang is not idealistic in the way that Reinhard. Like, I think actually both characters are idealistic, but in very different ways. Like, Yang is idealistic because he wants the best out of a world that often doesn't give him what he wishes it was. Whereas with Reinhard, he's like, I mean, he said himself, "Fuck absolute truth. I will make my own truth with these two hands." Like, it's very idealistic, but it's also idealistic in a far less, and maybe a far more naive way.
Yeah, Yang understands the problems of the world currently, and doesn't want to leave behind the people who are currently suffering in that world. Compared to Reinhard, is just like, I'm going to make a new world with blackjack and hookers. It'll be way better.
Yeah, no, he's gonna make a new Sansu,
and then everything will be fine.
No dances.
No
dances.
I don't want to go to this party.
No, because Reinhard hates parties. I missed that Reinhard.
That's the kind of episode I missed from season 1. We did not know Reinhard goes to the ball.
Now that you mention it, Jill, I just realized we have not had the fucking ridiculous Empires, like fucking space opera shit that season 1 gave us of like fucking
that's the kind of
men abducting princesses and
Space Caligula.
Oh my god, I miss some of that. Like season 2 has been so fucking real.
Yep.
Like season 2 has been because season 2 has been just us watching the fucking backslide and inevitable demise of a liberal democracy as its final few remaining embers of ideals are just snuffed out by its own worst elements. And we didn't get any of that. Just like, I'm gonna make this guy drink poison.
Right.
Several times.
When the Kaiser got kidnapped, the guy killed himself off screen. We didn't even get any ridiculous death scene.
Yeah, like we didn't even we didn't even say that Landsberg is still in play.
Oh yeah,
that's right. He kidnapped the Kaiser in his stomach. Bungling Poe.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that.
Don't get it twisted. The Bungling Poe.
Is he going to team up with
Kaiser?
Is he going to team up with Joe Truniht?
Oh my god! If that's actually where that fucking goes.
Stand for that, folks.
Oh my Jesus Christ! Oh my god! But yeah, just to that point though, just yeah, I just miss that fucking crazy ass like ball bombings and mass kidnappings, and I don't know, maybe we'll get more of that now that Reinhardt's now that we switch back to the Empire. Maybe some more like just maybe we're gonna get back to some like, oh no, Mecklinger's trying to throw a ball, but he can't find any glassware in time.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be, like I said, I don't think there's going to be a lot of action, at least in the foreseeable future. So, I mean, now would be the time to fit in some of that stuff now, I guess.
Totally. And I mean, I think to that point, we're gonna move into our next topic.
Now we're in the fun stuff.
Yes, we got all the serious stuff out of the way, so we're gonna move into the fun stuff next. But before that, we're gonna take a quick break, and we will be back in just a moment. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you all maybe enjoyed that break. Maybe you got something to eat or poured yourself a drink, because as I said before, we are now going to get into some of our more fun topics now that we kind of finished up with all the serious, politics and society stuff. So let's just get right into it. So our first kind of fun topic here is your perfect hypothetical Legend of the Galactic Heroes spinoff. If you got the chance to see a well-made, well-produced spinoff of any topic, any character, any subject related to Legend of the Galactic Heroes, what would you love to see? Did anyone bring something to class?
Well, first of all, before I get into my thing that I had to pick something else, because what I really wanted was that gacha game.
But unfortunately, that already exists. Yes.
Well, it's not running anymore.
Or existed.
I'm very sad that got discontinued before I discovered it, because
but those 3 or 4 images of the event special versions of some of those characters are solid gold.
Oh, they're so good.
Like Pirate Dusty Attenborough and Vampire Oberstein.
Speedo Kempf.
Some real quality content. So my heart was broken to discover that game got discontinued. I really wanted in on that.
But yeah, we were inspired by this topic in nature because of our rather infamous bit earlier in this season about the Flowers of Iserlohn, the hypothetical Iserlohn-based dating sim starring Julian. And we thought, man, this universe is so big. There's so many characters. There's just unbridled potential for spin-offs, both canon and non-canon, that I think would be pretty interesting.
Again, I had to pick another one because that actually was that was originally based on my idea of Julian running around in his own harem anime, which I would totally watch.
Spun that off into its horrible logical conclusion.
It also would have been a viable option. I started thinking about, because I feel like a lot of the obvious relationships and stuff are getting, if they're not already getting pretty well covered, then they probably will be at some point. But I was thinking in season 2, I was a little disappointed we didn't get more of what was going on in Phezzan.
Yeah.
And maybe something with the Phezzan freedom fighters, and get Space Cobra in there. That would. I mean, maybe that's just the Space Cobra series, and I should go read that or something. But I think there was a lot of room to explore that in there. And maybe we'll get back into that later, now that Phezzan is fully occupied by the Empire or whatever.
Yeah,
but
I kind of wish we had gotten more we joke about, but Julian and Louis Mashengo buddy cop adventures on Phezzan, right. Busting crimes and stopping the Empire.
Yeah. Have them hanging out with Space Cobra and fighting the Empire. That would have been pretty cool. And they kind of got in and got out on Phezzan. So
maybe on Earth.
Yeah,
maybe they'll be busting the Earth cult on Earth.
Yeah, so maybe we'll get that on Earth. But yeah,
Neo Tokyo is a hotbed of crime.
Only Julian Minchie and Louis Mashengo can put a stop to this madness.
Yeah. So, I mean, something in that area, I think there's probably a lot of stories that could be told out of there against the backdrop of kind of the bigger war and everything. I don't know if that would be an anime or a manga or something, or another novel or whatever, but I thought that'd be pretty cool.
So, for me, it would be there'd be a similar line to the Flowers of Iserlohn, but mine would just be called The Fortress. And it would be an Office, Parks and Rec style, fake documentary show about Kazelnu trying to control everyone. Basically, Kazelnu being did you really requisition 200 transport ships to get blown up.
Dusty!
It's just showing all the paperwork that had to be done just to have that happen, or just
man.
it'd be him talking to the camera after that happened.
That's totally what the Kazanu-led spinoff probably looks like. Just Kazanu desperately trying to balance his work life and his family life.
A mockumentary about the logistics of running Iserlohn.
Dusty Attenborough is the Chris Pratt kind of character, just crazy.
Just that rascal Dusty Attenborough.
Who's the Ron Swanson in this scenario?
Oh, Shen Cobb, undoubtedly. Do you even need to ask?
What is just fucking Shen Cobb's fucking just overly masculine traits just get exaggerated with every passing season until
he's
one of the
season. He's one of the
Shen
few
Cobb
fictional.
Takes out his knife, just brings a steak around with him, just eating it off the knife
right.
while he's at the meetings. And Helen was like, "I'm in the middle of this meeting. Come on."
Right. Just walking around with a knife and a raw steak just at the table or something. You have your scene where you go back to the family home set of this sitcom where Kazunu's like, I'm sorry, dear, I can't make it home for dinner. And she's like, again? He's like, I know, the Empire's attacking Iserlohn again.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the case where Yang never actually shows up, or he's constantly in the background, or
we never actually see him.
Does this specifically take place during the 4 weeks that Geiersberg is there?
But Bogdachu's your Tom. What's his name? Tom Haverford character. Just has all these schemes that he keeps trying to do in Iserlohn. All keep failing.
He's like, hey, listen up, Kazanu. I've got another get rich quick scheme on my hands.
Yes.
Fuck. That's pretty good. I think Iro's is the best, so we'll save that one for last.
What was mine?
I thought yours was the camping one.
We were talking about it earlier. All right.
Yeah.
We can get to that. Yeah.
I'll just say mine, which is this is more just a half-baked joke than an actual idea, but just to continue from that bit from before, I'm thinking a fighting game. Shen Kup is rushed down. Royandel is a counter fighter. Julian is the Ryu of this hypothetical fighting game.
Makes sense.
Yang is a pet fighter. He has really low stats and mobility, but he comes with 3 assists. Reinhard's super is his magic jar that he finally opens to reveal his fleets.
Wait, who are Yang's 3 assists though?
That would probably be probably Shen Kup, Julian, and
they're already characters.
They're already on the roster.
So
right?
would it be like Murai, Patrichev, and
Dusty, I guess, or something? I don't know.
Dusty.
Yeah.
Bittenfield would be the rushdown or the grappler.
Yeah. Bittenfield would be like Shen Kup, but even more risky. His attacks are faster and they do more damage, but also they're easier to punish.
His attacks hurt himself, but increase his attack power.
Yes, exactly.
Wouldn't Yang be the trickster character?
Oh yeah, Yang would be a zoner.
He's the magician. He's a trickster.
Right, Yang's a zoner.
Be the zoner. Yeah, he would
He totally
definitely
would.
Yeah.
You'd be like you'd be playing Bittenfield. You'd be like,
throwing
fucking
all
damn
my
it.
traps.
Right? No, you'd be playing Kempf, and everybody agrees Kempf is pretty low tier. But you'd be like, oh, I can't get past this fucking none of my mix-ups are working. They're too predictable. Just Yang just he keeps using his donut formation counter on me. And I think everybody would agree that standard Reinhard is top tier, but angry Reinhard, which is introduced as DLC, kind of takes a step down because he's just a little bit harder to keep control of. But fans will generally agree that angry Yang goes beyond just being a palette swap, but the additional iframes he gets on his Geiersberg special make it almost impossible to punish. So
and
Angry Yang would be
Angry Yang more power from. Yeah. It's like you're getting more power than Reinhardt, but less HP.
That's perfect. Actually, that would be exactly the case. Yes, I think Angry Yang would probably get introduced in tournament edition or championship edition. Obviously he's not in the vanilla game, but that's a character you introduce in like the spinoff of the spinoff game. Because you're like, hey, we got new characters that are just palette swaps of old characters, but we tweak the values. Like
Shadow version.
Earth Cold Bishop would have to be the boss character,
God,
right?
the Grand Bishop.
Oh man, Grand Bishop of Earth
He throws his crystal ball at you.
Right. I was gonna say, is that like your fucking M. Bison?
Exactly.
Fucking
Got the fire,
power.
throws fire at you. I don't know.
I'm just saying, it could work. Like
it
everybody
sounds
says,
better than the Battle Royale game. So.
Hey, exactly. Everybody's saying like, oh, the ideal Legend of Galactic Heroes game is a 4X, squad, fleet tactics game, and I agree. But also, let me have this. Let me have fucking Street Fighter by way of Legend of Galactic Heroes. So.
Would it be like the current Arc System Works 3D graphics, or are we going old school pixels?
Ooh, that's tough. I think. I guess. Oh man, but if you did the Arc System Works like 3D stuff, then like you just like that's what I mean though, right? Because like then. Like when they do their crazy ass mega finishers, and Yang's is just like deflecting the trajectory of Geiersberg into its own fleet.
You can show that whole scene.
You can just show that whole scene,
right?
End it with him, and the animation sequence with him sipping tea and looking at the camera.
Exactly.
Yang wins. Sips tea. Drinks brandy.
The pages of history are turning. Round 1, start.
I swear.
I think you got an idea here. You should go.
I swear that's already been used somewhere.
I'm sure. But in terms of actual a slightly more serious suggestion I might have is I almost would kind of love, Iro kind of touches upon this in the earlier part of this podcast. I kind of think I would truly love an alt-universe spin-off where Yang gets placed under house arrest in the Empire. And the show is just Reinhard and his admirals all trying to like plot and plan and like impress Yang with, again, with what Reinhard said during the conversation with Yang, like, Yang, you just can't deny the efficiency of a strong government. And like Yang is kind of just like there, like your Socrates-esque, like just like character who just kind of stumbles into the scene, like asks like 3 extremely basic off-the-cuff questions, and then that goes on to like send Reinhard and his admirals into like a dizzying downward spiral of self-doubt and fighting.
Someone paint Alexander meets Diogenes, but it's just Reinhard and Yang.
Yes, I need that in my life.
I mean, are we 100% certain that's not going to happen? Or something close to that? It's not going to happen? I'm just saying.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe in the maybe that happens in a lot of fan fiction.
Maybe
Yang gets placed under house arrest. He gets placed. He's forced to live in Reinhardt's personal quarters. Very,
that's
very
a different kind of fan fiction.
Yeah. I think that doujin's already been made a few times.
I'm sure it has.
I just want fucking Yang just like this is. I'm not even trying to say I want a Yang that is purposely trying to dismantle the Empire from within. I want a Yang that is placed under house arrest and just does not fucking give a fuck. It's just like walking into the planning room with all the admirals and like fucking Reinhardt's like, what the fuck is Yang doing here again? Where are the guards? How did he walk in here? And Yang just like just shrugs and like looks at their map of plan and is like, he doesn't even like criticize the plan. He's just like, but it's very interesting for me.
You can tell he does not approve, but he just doesn't say anything.
He just looks at it. He like nods his head. He's like,
just like frowns.
Yeah, he's just like,
so that's what you're going with, huh?
And then like fucking Reinhardt's like, wait, what are you saying? I'm just commenting on it. He's like, no, tell me what's wrong with it. He's like, no, it's a perfectly fine plan.
Reinhard von Lohengrin style plan.
Yeah, right. Like that's the thing. He wouldn't even mean to be passive aggressive. He would just say shit that would just dig under their skin, right? He'd be like, oh, you would do that, Mittermeier, and Mittermeier would be like, what would I do? Tell me. That's interesting.
All right.
And they would just. So all right, now your turn.
We were talking earlier about like how many shows would be improved if there's just a spin-off about the cast camping together. and like running down the list. And Natural Legends and Galactic Heroes comes up in this conversation, right?
Of course.
Just,
and I'm just like,
Space
hey,
camping.
yeah, a camping spinoff.
you know, and like the addendum to that is like, I guess what the like casual modern day AU or something of all the Galactic Heroes characters.
Yeah, I guess it would be something like that.
They're not even like
the show is just
No,
their
no,
RP
no.
server that they play together.
so it's not even like
They'll
They're not
go
even, like,
camping on the
military anymore.
iceberg where Heinsohn went
Oh,
away
I was
from.
gonna say I was gonna fuck the simulation thing. I want just actually going camping.
Right.
I just want fucking like
Everybody
I want this-
lands on, I don't know.
I
Kessler landed on that one time.
yeah, I
And
want
we
this to
just
be
go
like
camping.
right. I want this to be fucking the Mario Kart of Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Young just
where-
sits back, everyone else like sets up camp because
Right.
Young knows how to delegate.
Wait.
No,
but
worse than that, Young's fucking useless. Young can't do shit.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
what probably
of course.
happens
He
is
would
like
fuck it
Julian.
up.
No, like I was gonna say, Julian would probably like think to himself, or no, Julian would know better. Reinhard would be like, "All right, Young, I'm gonna give you one very simple task to help set up the campsite. All I need you to do is like gather kindling. All you need to do is pick up sticks and bring them into a pile here, and somehow Yang Wen Li would still fuck it up.
Yeah,
like-
probably.
Like it's nighttime and they have no firewood, and Yang Wen he'd be like, Yang, where's the kindling? He's like, huh?
okay. So two questions here. Iro, is this in any way inspired by the Fate State Night spinoff with everybody just hanging out and eating or whatever?
Who would even cook?
Oh
Julian,
man, Julian Sands Kitchen.
Julian
Like the
buying
idea
the 20
the idea
salmon.
of, like, just
today's menu at Julian's house.
The idea of just like detaching the cast into like a completely mundane
Right.
situation. Also, Gee, you mentioned Mario Kart. Why don't we just do like a Grand Prix?
Oh,
man,
yeah.
Fucking Iserlohn Grand Prix.
I mean, you know, the Hyperion cart and Brunhilde cart.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They got all those ships.
That's true.
Make tons of in jokes. I mean, that would be. I'd watch that.
Point is, I think there's the wellspring of potential is limitless here.
Which is
Yoshiki
probably
Tanaka called me. I have a lot of ideas.
which is probably
You can send a check to PayPal at theglorioblog.com.
Wait, what?
these are probably all things that people have been thinking of for the past 30 years, and we're just now getting on the
Of course.
on the bandwagon here.
You're just now, only 30 years behind, but
Yeah.
All right.
yeah. All right. So after all of that, we have one more
I put together a quiz for everybody.
Yeah, we have one more game here, just like in our season 1 wrap-up podcast, where we were tasked with naming those admirals in the OP. We've decided to do another thing, kind of related to VAs. We're gonna ask who voiced who,
Oh, yeah.
and the idea here is that many members of the cast of Legend of the Galactic Heroes either went on to voice some very famous roles in anime, or formerly voiced some very famous roles in anime. And we kind of wanted to guess who was responsible for what. The example we're going to use for this is that Admiral Kessler, the Reed Richards looking guy on Reinhard's side, is voiced by crap, I forgot his name. I forgot the name of the VA. I know who he voiced. But he voiced the same. He also voiced Char Aznable from the original
Shuichi
Gundam.
Ikeda.
Yes, Shuichi Ikeda. And so we decided, how about we throw together a little collage image here that is none of you are going to be able to see unless you maybe go to the
some
notes
real
of the
great
podcast.
audio here, but
Just post it into the YouTube video. It's fine.
But so I'm just going to list off.
Yeah.
So
You
here's
can
the
follow along at
these are
home.
not in order. These are completely jumbled up. But we have here an image that I hope you all are looking at right now.
yeah.
We have, in order, we have Poplin, Louis Mashengo, Royenthal, Job Truniht, Yang Wen Li, Julian, Rubinsky, Reinhard, Merkatz, and Mittermeier. And then the roles that those 10 voiced are, again, scrambled up, are Vegeta, Jigen Daisuke, Piccolo, Inspector Zenigata, Chio's dad, old Joseph Joestar, Frieza, Speed Racer, the original Kodai from Yamato, Space Battleship Yamato, and Yusuke Urameshi.
This is going to be great because
So,
I've only ever heard 4 of these characters in Japanese.
I know. I'm sorry.
No. This is perfect. I specifically wanted Iro to make this because I knew we were gonna fucking fail
No.
terribly at this.
So
So
we're
why
gonna.
get out
I
of the
was
way?
born in the 90s. Why do you think I know how Vegeta, Frieza, and Piccolo sound in Japanese?
That's why it's gonna be fun to just fucking guess. So I'm gonna go with the easy one, which is Roy Enthal, who is voiced by Nori Wakamoto.
Oh, come on. We
voiced-
all already knew that one.
Yeah.
and that's why I'm taking it.
Okay,
Voiced Chio's
that's
dad.
the free square.
Fucking whatever. I'm taking it. All right, fine. From there, the one I think I have on the money because they sound similar enough. Iro, how do you want us to do this? If we
I
do
don't
you want us
know.
to guess them all, or do you want to
Should we-
confirm when we
Should we take
Right.
turns?
So I have
I don't know, like
Job Trunicht is Inspector Zenigata.
Incorrect.
Oh, what?
Okay.
Ah,
How about you, Gel? You got to guess. The problem is also that like
Right.
I'm
a
gonna
lot of these voice actors have changed over the years.
yeah.
I'm gonna say Adrian Rubinski is Frieza.
No, wrong again.
Okay,
This
how
is
about-
not gonna go well.
Oh, this is so good. No, this is perfect.
This is great audio. Me just saying wrong over and over.
No, that's great. All right. How about this one? I'm pretty confident about this one. Mercats and Jigen.
Yeah, that's what I
wrong.
was going to say.
What?
What?
They sound so similar.
Yeah. Boy,
Oh
this
my god. Fuck,
man,
that was my
you
one in
have
the
not
hole.
made this easy.
Crap, I'm fucked. I'm fucked.
All right, I'll give Mercats is Zenigata.
Um,
Wait. Oh. I'm trying to hear their voices in my head. Really? Okay.
Then is Job Trunicht Jet Daisuke?
No.
Ah.
Oh man. Okay.
Boy, this is
Okay,
gonna,
so-
oof.
So
Oof.
Speed Racer is actually pretty old. So I'm wondering if like one of like the older voices is actually the voice of Speed Racer.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fuck. This is awful.
All right, Rubinsky is Daisuke.
Fuck.
I don't know.
Wait.
Yeah,
What?
yes.
Wait. What?
You landed over. You got one. Kiyoshi Kobayashi voiced Adrian Rubinsky and still voicing Chicken Daisuke.
Fuck.
Yeah,
Okay.
like
all
25
right.
years later.
Now I'm just doing this based on ages. Did Julian voice Yusuke?
Yes.
Okay. Hell yeah. All right.
All right.
Sasaki Nozomu.
We got 3 in the bag.
Yusuke
Guys.
Urameshi.
I'm gonna
Um,
guess Speed Racer is Yang Wenli. I have no idea.
No.
Ah,
What about
Is
you,
he
Joe?
is Yang Derek Wildstar or whatever his
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
that was
I guess those
mine.
All right.
Yang Wenli, Kei Tomiyama voiced Tsusuma Kodai.
Is it Louis Mashengo and Piccolo?
No.
Damn it!
I felt like that was kind of I was thinking that, but that also might have been
Thought maybe that'd be the case.
yeah.
Job Trunicht and Joseph Joestar?
Yes.
Wait, what?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
I can
wow.
hear it now. Yeah. Okay.
The late great Nuncho Ishizuka voiced both of them.
Wow, rest in peace. Yeah, I guess here's the problem, right? When I think of old Joseph, I just think of all of his English. I don't actually think of his normal speaking voice. And I was trying to think
Right.
who is a character in Legend of the Galactic Heroes who emotes like old Joseph Joestar.
Nobody.
Nobody.
Is Mittermeier Speed Racer?
Yeah.
Oh
Okay,
shit!
I'm
Okay,
2 for 2.
all right.
The Gale
Two in a row.
Wolf. I mean,
Okay,
you're running
so
out
who
of
do we? So
combinations.
who do you have?
now.
We have Vegeta and Frieza are left, right?
And
Is
Piccolo.
Poplin? And Piccolo is Poplin?
Frieza?
Frieza? Yeah.
No.
No,
Is he Vegeta?
Poplin is Piccolo.
he's Piccolo.
Oh, wait,
Huh.
Poplin's
left.
Piccolo.
Okay.
Ah, I should have known the alliteration. Of course.
Could have gone with Kaishida
All right,
from Gundam, but
I feel like
Then
I feel like if Louis Mashengo is Vegeta, my mind is gonna get blown.
Is
here.
he Vegeta?
no. Mashengo
He's
is
Frieza.
Frieza.
What?
Huh.
No, okay, that's even more mind blowing. Actually,
What? Wait, what?
interesting. The problem is
but
like
Mashengo's so
I
cool under pressure.
think of Frieza and I can only think of the old Genkai voice.
Yeah.
Wait, does
So
that leave?
that leaves Reinhard as
is
Vegeta?
Reinhard, yeah.
That's
Huh.
appropriate.
Wow,
That is
That's
so
appropriate.
appropriate.
Real Horkawa is
Truly.
Vegeta.
truly the most prideful character of all, the most prideful
Right.
VA.
Prince of Saiyans.
Yes.
Right, the Prince of Saiyans, Ryan von Lohengram.
It's a type. Yeah.
Man, are you telling me Lewis? Are you telling me Lewis Mashengo kills Reinhard? Is that where this is going?
That would
that
be
where this
pretty
is
amazing.
going?
That'd be a twist.
And Reinhard kills Poplin? Wow, this is unmasking so much.
Boy. And bonus round. One of these actors voices a different character on this chart in the D&T.
Oh, as you mean what? Wait, which character voices who? I'm sorry. So one of the
actors on this chart voices another one, a different Galactic Heroes character,
in
all
D&T.
still on this chart in D&T.
Wait, as in they're still voicing the same character?
No,
in
it's a
D&T?
different character,
they're
but it's
voicing-
one on this chart.
That's weird.
Okay.
Oh boy, that's
Mercat's guy is Royenthal.
No.
I don't know.
No. They would not bring back.
I'll just
They would not-
I can just
No.
tell it.
Wait. Let me keep guessing. I
fine.
want to keep guessing. Sorry, this is good content. This is good hashtag content.
I mean, would it be like because Julian's the young guy, and now it's like
Now that he's
30
the
years
old guy,
later, so
right?
he'd be playing an old guy? Was that the
Is Julian playing Mercats?
No,
Is Julian
Mercat's
playing
even
Job
in
Truniht?
it's not Julian.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Is it Poplin? Is Poplin voicing Mercats? Look, I'm just gonna keep guessing for the old
It's just the
characters.
person being voiced, but it is
Yeah,
not.
see, I got it. I
but
nailed those
but it is
Mercats.
not Poplin.
Are we just gonna go in order of every
I
character
mean,
on this
that's
list?
Ermeyer?
why I'll just tell you.
Fine. Who is it?
Yeah, it's Job Trunicht.
Job Truniht is voicing Mercats?
Yeah,
That's weird.
I mean
so
not anymore.
weird.
Not anymore because that voice actor is now passed. But
Oh,
Oh.
during D&T, he was voicing.
but he
Mercat.
wasn't voicing Joe Trunicht again.
No,
Okay.
but he was voicing Mercats.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
so it's just a weird trivia thing.
Is he
Yeah.
the only character that returned from Legend of Galactic
As far
Heroes
as
to
I
voice
know.
another? Wow. I mean, that's
I
a
feel like
bit.
I have to look
You know,
that up.
that's some tragic and unfortunate timing because Mercats doesn't really have a whole lot of lines in D&T. You know, it's not until
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is he even in there other than like maybe like the
The very beginning.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, he's in the very beginning. But hey, don't worry. D&T recently announced season 2 is coming out. You know, with the Battle of
Yeah.
Estate. I hope you're all looking forward to
Boy.
that.
God, it feels like a million years ago.
I hope you're all
Yeah.
looking forward to the B shonen-ified, pretty version of the Battle of Estate, where I'm sure they'll definitely show all the parts with like people getting vivisected by ship explosions.
Oh, of course.
I do like
Uh,
that you
completely-
guys picked Chio's dad for Norio Wakamoto. I just want to say that.
Of course,
I mean,
Yeah,
I
do
wanted to
appreciate that.
Excel, but
We got too many.
Nah,
we got too many Dragon Ball characters on
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
yeah, too many Dragon Balls. Hey, look,
is
it's
that,
gonna be
is that
Chio's
actually
dad.
his next most notable role? Because that's pretty funny.
I think
Yeah,
so.
I would
Yeah,
say
I mean, I think
Chio's
it's-
dad
I
is a
think-
pretty popular character.
maybe in the West.
The
I would say probably the top 3 are probably Chio's dad, the Emperor in Code Geass, just because of how much he's hamming it up in that role,
Oh yeah.
and
Cell.
Cell, yeah, and then
Cell's
maybe in a
the big
distant
one,
fourth.
yeah.
Maybe in the distant fourth is that one character from Yu Yu Hakusho who challenges Yusuke to a jackknife edge deathmatch
true.
or whatever.
He was the Australian
True.
guy.
True, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the
they
Australian
made him
guy
look
is-
Australian. Oh my god,
Yes,
that dog.
because God. All right, we were losing track again,
Yes,
so
we
you know
are.
what? I'm gonna say
I hope everyone had fun with my little quiz.
yes.
Yeah,
I'm
yes,
sure
thanks,
there
Iro.
are some fans out there who were thank you, Iro, for putting that together. Thank me for putting that image together. Like I said, there are probably some fans out there who are probably screaming at us for getting it so bad. Look, we watch a lot of anime here, but VAs, I think, look, unless your name is Miyuki Sawashiro, identifying voices has never been our strong suit.
Yeah, or Joji
So-
Nakata.
But
Jojo
with all
Nakata
that
is
said,
in Galactic Heroes.
he is,
Oh,
yes.
right.
Dude voices Schumacher.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
Boy, is he
adjutant
ever
to
coming
no, not
back?
the adjutant. He is
I hope he does.
I hope he does. Yeah.
Maybe
I
he's
like
still
him.
hanging out with Landsberg. I don't know.
Oh, I hope he's still hanging out with Landsberg. That's such an underrated duo in this show. There are many great legendary duos across the pages of history. Reinhard von Lohengram and Siegfried Kircheis, and Yang Wen Li and Julian Minchie. But some forget about the hidden pairs
Alfred Landsberg and Leopold Schumacher.
But yes, all right. After what only feels like about 12 hours, I think I think we've talked ourselves out here. So I think it's time for us to take care of the housekeeping. So you can read and listen to our content at theglorioblog.com. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, wherever else podcasts are stored and bought these days. Check with your local podmonger. You can watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes on High Dive and VRV. Like, subscribe, leave a review. You know the score. Please, as Jel said earlier, if you like us talking about old anime, maybe you like us talking about new anime, and listen to the GLORIO Chat podcast, our sister podcast. And I think with all that said, thank you all for listening. It's been hell of a ride, and we're only halfway through. But
Woo!
I hope you will all stick around for the second half, where I'm sure things will be very pleasant and peaceful from now on.
The war's over. The war's over. Everything should be fine from here.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you guys have any remaining thoughts before I close up for here?
No, I think we're good.
Nobody.
I mean, thank you guys
This was a lot of fun.
for getting us on, and you guys do a great job every 2 weeks. I was going to say every week, every 2
Thank
weeks.
Thank you.
So, I'm looking forward to season 3.
Oh,
yes. Thank you to both Jell and Marlon for coming on. The additional voices always it always adds a little extra spice to the podcasts, which I can't help but enjoy, even if it makes editing these podcasts kind of a pain in the butt.
Have fun with that.
Yes.
Yeah, you got a couple weeks.
But we're doing this early. But
you got 8 week.
Yes. And you know what? As always, Iro, thank you for accompanying me on this journey every step of the way. As founder of the FPA, Ale Heinesen once said, "It is darkest before the dawn."
God damn it.
It's all uphill from here.
Yes, more than ever, Iro, I will need you in these troubling times ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're in it now. We're halfway through. It's
living on a prayer.
Exactly. So, once again, thank you all, and we will see you next time amongst the Sea of Stars.